not supposed to be doing a lien on something unless you have a security interest in something. So you need to
Yeah.
know what a security interest is before you
But
start
then
trying to
how
lien something.
he doesn't have a lien, a security interest in the city or the whoever employed the cops.
Wait a minute. Does he? Did he ever notify the government of his fee fee schedule? Did he ever get a contract with the government to say don't violate my rights? See, now if there's an agreement, guess what? Now he has a justifiable claim. See, you can't just randomly do liens because you think they violated your rights. There is
Uh-huh.
a process to do things. That's
Okay.
the reason why I stress it. You have to read their stuff. They will tell you how to do everything.
So, what do you recommend reading then in regards to this situation?
Well, right now me and Jesse shared the links yesterday for archive.org. Um, archive.org and do a search for the law of agency. If you are the agent, you need to learn how to operate your office correctly.
Okay. So you're saying basically that you don't feel that we should resign as agent, but we should just learn how to do the office correctly, which
Yeah,
is not what we're doing right now.
that's right.
Okay. And you're saying that KW regrets that he resigned now that he looks back?
He did all that under probate court. Okay. And he told me personally, I said, because on the video, he never says what he would do differently. He just said he would do things differently. And I asked him, I said, when you said that, what did you mean? He said, I wouldn't never go through the probate court like I did before and did all that stuff.
Well, so what would he do then instead?
What he's done, he created his own state, his own county, his own bank, his own court.
So did he have to undo some of the things he did earlier in probate court before?
No, he just moved on from it and did things accordingly.
By the way, I've heard about this before. So another friend, he didn't go into detail. He just told me once I get something done, he'll tell me the next steps to do or whatever. But he mentioned probate court. But I think he was saying that once you do that, your credit goes to the bottom, and you can't use credit anymore. And then he talked about a deed poll. I'm assuming the ecclesiastical deed poll and whatever. And I was just like, it was all over my head. But he did talk about you have to go to probate and do something. So
well, now I'm not against going to probate. I mean, you got people out there saying that I'm going to go get an EIN for it to be the executor. No, you need to be appointed as executor first, then go get the EIN. So how do you get appointed? You do the proper arguments and proper filings in probate court. Get your documents in proper order to be appointed to the executorship. The probate court can be used in this process if you do things right to get the appointments you need, just like the Secretary of State, who regulates all the corporations and registered agents. Secretary of State. So accept your office. Then once you accept that office and you get a certificate back, and I would request one for documentation for you from the Secretary of State, you take a copy of that and then you attach it to the 56F form and send it to the IRS. Say do things decently and in order is what the Bible says. There's a proper way to do things.
So you have to accept your office as registered agent? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes, because one thing KW said is that if they have no letter on file that you have accepted the position, service of process is deficient.
Okay.
And that's how you're volunteering to play the part of liability, because why? You haven't done things properly.
So is the principal is liable, right? So is that right? The principal is
Yes,
liable?
yes. The
So
agent is
then,
not liable if they're doing their job right.
huh.
I
So
mean,
then you,
when McDonald's got sued many moons ago for hot coffee, did they serve the court case on the local McDonald's in the same town that the court was at? No, they did not. They 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 did service of process on the um, on the registered agent, and the registered agent in turn told the corporate office, "Hey, you're getting sued." Did the registered agent get sued? No, the registered agent hold no liability. It wasn't the registered agent's position for liability.
okay. Hmm. That makes
But
more sense because before I was like, why do you have to unregister as agent? I just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I had a comment on the driving and pulled over thing. If anybody wants to hear it,
okay, go ahead.
um, I believe that your dad having the exempt plates is he. I'd imagine that he did what I did because it all comes down to people. So let's say that there's 30 officers of the court addressed as police officers or sheriffs. So you got police officers, you got sheriffs, and then you usually have a state highway patrol. And by having clean hands, going through their information as far as their codes and of what really needs to be registered in all of the codes, whether it be, the California Vehicle Code, it'd be section 260, that clearly defines a commercial vehicle is a vehicle upon which is required to be registered because it's earning money or it's a vehicle of hire. And then it says vehicle code section 260B, a passenger car that's not doing anything for hire is not this and that, therefore it is not a commercial vehicle. So in their own words, they tell you that if you're earning money on the public highways, byways, then you have to go, because that's what I did. I had to physically go to the multiple police stations and physically get up with the man or woman that was in charge of that. And I had to get up with the sheriff. And I had to get up with the main ringleader or the buck stops here as far as the California Highway Patrol. And I had to give them information saying, this is who I am. Here's photographs of my car. Here's all the information. I am not conducting any type of commerce or whatnot. I'm letting you know that I'm going to be going from point A to point B at any point on any day of the week. And I am not conducting commerce at all. And that man is going to go ahead and disseminate that information. You have a correspondence or basically a letter of agreement between you and the boss of the sheriff or the boss of the police or the boss of the highway patrol. That is the correspondence in the event that we are, emergency lights go off and we pull off to the side of the road or whatnot. That's what you want to give that man or woman, because apparently he was not askew to the debriefing, or apparently it's an error, or let's just say a mistake. But bottom line is, here's a correspondence from your boss that says, do not interfere with my ability to go from point A to point B unless you have physically seen me cause harm or damage or some type of financial loss.
Are you going to argue with that officer on the side of the road?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Well, the legal definition of argue would be to make your point polished or clear, or present information that's, describing your point of view. An argument in Webster's dictionary is two people can't agree and they keep escalating the situation. I believe it's better, at least for me, because I've got my exempt plates and I get, obviously, woo woo. And here you go. Are you a sheriff, or are you, part of the duly elected sheriff upon which that I have spoken to? And here is his letter of do not interfere with me unless you've seen me cause some craziness. Here you go. Oh, are you part of the
Hey, y'all.
police?
Hey,
Are you
y'all.
part of the...
Nashawn Garrett's getting ready to jump on here. I told him, I said, you need to come on Fearless Floyd and come hang out with us. I met him on TikTok. He did the state national, was doing the state national stuff, but he wasn't bought and sold on it. You know what I'm saying? He still would read other stuff. So me and him's been talking. He bought the exempt plate from me, right? He purchased it. He got it yesterday, put it on his car. He made it about an hour and got arrested and put in jail. That's why I tell you, don't think they won't mess with you. He called me after he made bond and said, what do I do? And I told him about the registered agent, told him everything. And he tried it in court. Now the court was full of people, and the judge stood his ground. I'm issuing a warrant for the arrest of Nashawn Garrett since for failure to appear. Well, he comes out and says, what do I do? I said, go back inside, go to the clerk, tell them you want to appeal the decision, right? So he goes back inside, and the cop, one of the county cops, approach him with the warrant and says, is this you? He said, I've already told you I'm the authorized representative registered agent for that estate, and I came here to settle this matter. And the cop won't arrest him. And the cop yells at him, raises his voice, and then leaves, comes back and with the bond paper from the night before and said, is this your signature? He says, I don't feel comfortable answering your questions. I've already told you I am the registered agent, authorized representative for that estate. And the cop leaves, and he walks right out of court. He told me after that, he said, man, you are right on track, because it blew him away that he stood his ground with that cop. He said it blew him away that the cop didn't put handcuffs on him. I said, that's what I'm telling you. They need you to accept the office or the name.
It's very insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Now
I completely concur with that.
He told me, he said, what do I do next? I said, what you need to do is file a counterclaim. Because we went yesterday and found Tennessee's self-insurance certificate. And I said, and you need to file a counterclaim on the unnamed charging instrument because they didn't give it to him, and against the insurance of Tennessee because it applies to the judge, and you file this counterclaim against their claim. So that's one of the things we're going to be working on with him, is doing that. Boy, my day just went to crap. I hope I don't have to be here all damn day. I didn't make it, Jesse.
What chat can you see whatever you guys are typing?
In the chat?
Yeah, is it because I click on the
arrow on the top right of the list of participants in the voice. You see that arrow up on the top right? You tap that, it takes that list down, and then you can see what's in the chat.
when I press open chat, it goes to the National USA chat.
Then you just go to your list of groups and go to it.
To which group?
Fearless Floyd, that's what you're in right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mistakenly joined this thing. I don't know what I pressed, but okay. So the thing is, why did he, if he's the registered agent for the name, then why did he go to court? Like, why did he have to show up to court?
Because he had arraignment the very next morning. Okay?
Uh-huh.
The registered agent still has to handle things properly.
He had arraignment the next day, and he went before his arraignment?
No, he went to the arraignment to settle the matter. What are you supposed to do? Settle your commercial affairs.
Okay. So you can settle them at arraignment?
If the judge is receptive. Sometimes they're not in open court because they don't. Look, what he was doing, and the judge knew what he was doing. The judge knows this stuff. So the judge couldn't let it be out in the public what he's doing. So the judge did what? Now, is that arrest warrant going to stick? We don't know. It could be, he could go to the sheriff's website and look for that arrest warrant and it never show up. In other words, the judge just gets rid of the case. Your public and private do not mix. When I had my mud flap ticket, the traffic ticket for in Virginia, when I took it to trial, let's see, let me go back. I'll go through the traffic part. On the traffic part, the day of court, the judge said that you can plead guilty, not guilty, no contest. And if you have an attorney, your attorney will speak for you. But if you do not, and you have a procedural question, please ask. That's what he started the day with. So about halfway through everybody there, he calls my name. And at this time, this was probably 6-7 years ago before I learned what I know today. Because I'd have done things different today than I would now. So he calls the name, and I step up, and the state trooper starts telling his story. I said, hold up. This is what you said. He said, oh, so you have a question? I said, yes, sir, I do. We need to establish the rules of this court. Can you please tell me which jurisdiction we're operating in? Now, most of y'all would have known what I was attempting to ask. What I was attempting to ask was admiralty jurisdiction, common law, equity, But he answered the question, and he answered it correctly. He said, Dinwiddie County, Virginia, the United States. That's why you got to be careful how you say things, okay?
I actually wonder, like, you said you responded to the name. Like, aren't you supposed to, say something? Like,
this
you're
was
not
6 or 7 years
ago.
Okay. I didn't know this stuff that I know today.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
That's so the way.
What's up, Miss Sean?
Hey, what's going on?
So when I got that, when he answered the question that way, I said, I held up the ticket and I said, well, this is not a criminal matter because there's no grand jury indictment. He said, well, that's correct. And I said, the way I see it, this is a contract. Oh, no, it's not no contract. I said, well, I presume it is, and I see constructive fraud. And as soon as I said that, he said, oh, that's some law done away with 50 years ago, floating around on the internet, $50 fine, you can appeal it in 10 days. So I walked out, walked right to the clerk, and said, I want to appeal the decision. I got a trial date. Now, when we went to trial, the judge, this time there's a DA. There wasn't before. And the DA says, the state of Virginia moves to dismiss this upon payment of cost. I said, I'll appeal it. And the judge said, really? What kind of arguments are you going to make? I said, constitutional arguments. He said, can I get everybody out of here first? I smiled at him and said, yes, sir, you may. I knew what he was asking. He was saying, look, don't expose us in public. See what I'm saying? So Nashon, I told him the basics of what you went through, and I said, could the judge had put on the show because it's in public? Oh yeah, possibly. But tell him that cop asked you and never arrested you.
Oh yeah. Well, so, and the funny part is because when I had showed up at the arraignment, there was about maybe, I want to say 8 to 10 people in there also, and they were all waiting. And so I was already talking to them about everything, that we talk about with regards to, kind of the exposure of the courts and, the registered agent. I didn't get too much into the registered agent stuff, but they were all listening and very interested. And so when the judge came in, he was, and he had said the name, and I stood up and I said, I'm the registered agent for that name. I'm here to settle the matter for the estate. He said, well, who are you? And I told him I'm Nation. He said, well, we're looking for this person. And I said, well, I'm here. I'm Nation. I'm of the House of Garrett, and I'm here to settle the matter on that account for that estate. And, and so it was very clear that he was trying to connect me, the living man, to that estate. Even so, basically, I think it was a little bit of a scare tactic to put the warrant out. He said, okay, well, we're just going to put a warrant out since he's not here. And I said, sir, I am here. I am Nation. I'm here to settle the matter on the estate. And anyways, he said, well, we're going to, since he's not here, we're going to put a warrant out on the, we'll put a warrant out for his arrest. And then he said, you're free to go. And so I left, and then I called a pastor, and once we had called, he said, go in there and appeal. And so I went downstairs. I took some paperwork with me to put on the record. And when I went down there to make an appeal, we said, hey, we want to appeal the court decision. But they wouldn't let me do it because and the officer who was there acting as I forget exactly what they're called, the officer who acts on, you got to give me 1 minute here. The officer, he actually came out and met me from the clerk's office, and he got really close, and he was like, is this you? Really very trying to intimidate me. And I said, like I told the court, that I am the registered agent, and the authorized representative on behalf of that estate. And he was lifting it up. And even when he lifted it up on one of the other papers, he had a post-it note that said, is a sovereign citizen. And so it was actually really quite interesting, because obviously now they obviously live by their presumptions. They make money off of presumptions and people not understanding what their position and who they are. And so So he, walked away upset. And so we ended up but they would not let me make an appeal. They wouldn't let me make an appeal. And I said, I'm here to handle that matter. And so when Pastor and I actually called them back, what did she say, Pastor? She said that I failed to identify myself. He said, you can't handle the matter because I had failed to identify myself. And that's not true, because I did identify myself, but they just would not accept me. And so they're trying to get in the way of my fiduciary obligation to take care and settle the matter, and give the notice to the principal. And so anyway, so the clerk, one of the ladies who's working in there, she goes to take all my paperwork. She takes it to get it, put it on the record, and then give it to me, which is interesting. Like, why would they let me put paperwork on file if I didn't have the authority to act in that way? Which I don't know. It just seemed a little bit double-minded to me. But anyways, the officer come back in there on the other side of the glass. He said, and he pulled out something. This is one of their tricks. He pulled out what I had signed when I had left the jail. I signed at UCC 1-308, and there was obviously my signature. And he looked at it and he said, "Is this you? Did you sign this? Is this you?" And I was like, "Officer, I don't feel comfortable answering questions." And then he was like, "All right," and he walked away. So they were trying to get me to identify with that name, so that way they could slap the cuffs on me and put me back in jail. So it was a lot of trickery and a lot of just a lot of tomfoolery going around. And so at this point in time, we've called a couple people, and we're just trying to figure out why they won't. Because I never got a charge. I never got a paper with all the charges. So I don't have any of that information, and so it's making it difficult for me to give notice to the principal that there's an issue that needs to be that they need to handle for their estate. And so that's kind of where kind of me and Pastor left off. And obviously I'm open to any suggestions of kind of where to go now, because
I've watched a bunch of videos on how to handle court and judges by Deprogrammed Enlightener. His name, he calls himself Tazadoc. Have you heard of him?
I have heard of him, yes.
Yeah, so he's kind of I hear myself echoing. How do I stop that?
Sorry, let me put myself on mute.
Okay. He doesn't make his videos short, which I kind of don't like, but he does have a bunch of videos where he talks about what he said in court and how he handled the situation. He talks about the judges having 3 different hats, and each time they dismiss the court or they recess or something and they come back with a different hat. And he talks about some of the tricks that they do to try to get you into jurisdiction. But I think what was I going to say? If you're appealing, I think there's some other way you're supposed to handle it. Like, I think if you appeal or something, that's kind of using their system, so then that might be putting you back into their jurisdiction.
But they've already got jurisdiction. It's their property. It's their name.
And you're in their venue. You're in their house. Look, let me tell y'all how I beat mine. Okay, maybe you can try this. And I used the W-4 process to do it. All you really need to do is put them on their heels by making them think that you're going to audit them. So send them a W-9 request, okay? Make sure it's certified mail, that you can have proof that they signed for it. Because when they do, that creates a trust. Then you take that. I gave them 3 days to respond. It took them like over a week. They sent it back, and on the W-9 request, she sent it back. She had it highlighted in yellow. We do not W-9s, okay? However, you do have a warrant out for your arrest. So I took that W-9 along with proof that I sent, and I filled out a whole W-4 packet, and at the bottom of it, I put the whistleblower form, okay, and attached it and sent it to the court, the county clerk, or to the clerk of record, and that ticket disappeared. It's no longer there. It's gone. Now, I don't know if it's because I sent the package to the W4 to the other two places. I don't think so. I think it really has to do with she saw that she was being audited and that she knew that she was in dishonor from her default in regards to not filling out the W-9, and that she took it to the judge, and the judge said, get rid of it. You know, so
No,
makes that.
the reason why they got rid of it was because they securitize these. They securitize them, right? They trade them on the municipal bond market through the court, which is there's a tax liability. They're not putting it to the IRS. They're making you
And that's
pay
why
it by putting you in jail, pay fines.
That's what I'm saying, is that they knew that they were fixing to be audited for not filing the taxes. So the judge just said, go ahead and get rid of this. Make sure it disappears. Because they don't want to be audited.
and make
if they
sure
come
that
back and audit them, they don't want to see what, you know, they don't want the IRS to see what they've been doing.
That's
and ask what name shall I put on that
295,
4800
275,
form?
or 225.
Well, I guess the deprogrammed enlightenment goes off a different premise in that the courts are all like fictional, and so what you need to do is control. You are the one who controls the court, and you have to act that way. If you don't act that way, for example, I think he was saying you did something where you
Huh?
kind of like let them have authority. Sorry, was someone talking?
Susan, is to stay out of their venue at all costs. You want to try to handle everything through a private administrative process if possible, so that you don't have to go in their venue. Because if you go in their venue and you start arguing with them, you are in breach of the national, or whatever it is, the 14th Amendment, that says that the national debt is not to be questioned. So in public, you're never to question the national debt. If you go in there arguing, you're automatically in default and dishonor. It doesn't matter whether you did something or whether you did not. That's not the point.
Oh, he talks about, when you said the judge said you're free to go and then you went, you don't want to let him do that, because that means you're giving him that authority. So you want to say that, I demand to be set at liberty, blah, 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 after you finish whatever you were saying. And if there's no other, whatever person, party, I guess, coming forward to prove their injuries or something, verify their injuries, then I demand to be set at liberty. So he talks about sort of the wording that you want to use versus letting the judge take control of the courtroom, who's not really a judge, who's an administrator.
I think, Susan, that you're missing the point. If I go into your house and I start trying to bark orders and tell you something, what are you going to tell me?
You want to put in a notice of special appearance before you go to court, so you're not there as general appearance. By showing up general appearance.
You're still boarding their ship. You're still participating in their fictio. Okay, and if you go inside of there, at the end of the day, that judge has discretion to do whatever he wants in his house. You may be.
Well, I agree. Like, you want to handle things as much as you can, so you don't have to go in front of a judge, right? But I mean, if he's already there, then how do you handle that? But I mean, the other thing is, what is the significance of the bar if you just enter the building and then you're already on their ship? Like, why did people say like not to cross the bar? I don't know, something like that. What is the significance of that bar?
Boarding the vessel, you're already in their jurisdiction when you go into the building. But when you cross that bar, you are basically going into the judge's, his private domain. So you don't want to go in there, because then really not going to be able to do anything but be subject to what the judge says, regardless of what your paperwork says. It's better to do it in equity. All right, learn how to operate in equity and use private channels to communicate with whoever that you're trying to communicate with, and be able to go in there and speak to the judge and use equity.
Okay. So how did you learn equity? Do you recommend, there's somebody that posted an equity, some kind of document on it. Do you recommend reading that?
Yoda's in the chat right now. Ask the man about equity. I mean, I know the basics and I understand how it works, but I don't know all the intricacies of it. You know, that you're going to have to speak to someone that is a little more versed in equity than I am. I'm still learning as I go along, right? And as I go along, I start seeing how it applies and where it needs to be used. And I've come to the realization that if everything is equity and trust, then I need to get out of the public and quit dealing with debits and credits and start dealing with equity. Because equity is where you're going to find your true remedy. You're not going to get any real remedy in the public because it's not designed that way. It's designed for you to pay those debts, period.
Yeah.
End of story. Speak up, Yoda. We need some wise counsel. I would presume that if you really know how to operate in trust, then you're going to understand or have a strong grasp of equity, all right? Or you're really not moving around in trust to the full capacity, all right? So learning equity is very, very important on so many different levels is what I'm starting to come to the realization of. Because to get out of the system or to just be able to make your claim, you have to be able to know how to make an equitable claim. So that, that's part of becoming the beneficiary, is learning how equity works so that you can utilize the equity to move you into the correct position in regards to the trust so that you're not responsible for anything anymore and the federal government takes on their obligations. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah, I know there's a guy that uses equity to help people, I guess, discharge their debts or whatever you call it, get rid of their debts.
A minute ago, you were talking about
Hello? Pastor, we can't hear you.
I think he has a bad connection.
He sounds like he's out and about somewhere. What are we supposed to talk about today? Is there like anything on the...
What I was trying to say a second ago when my signal said nope. When you were bringing up, Susan, about their fiction, it's an irrelevant argument. Yes, they are fictions. That doesn't mean they are illegal. That's why they have jurisdiction, because everything they do in this system is a fiction.
So, I mean, but what Tazadok is saying is that, you don't, because the courts are fictional, and if you, take yourself out of that fiction, by going private or whatever, then there's ways to handle it.
Yeah, but what people are not equating properly is you have to have a fiction to operate in the fiction.
Yes.
That's why public and private do not mix. Public is the fiction.
Yes.
Private is not. So a lot of the teachings out there, I'm telling you, are wrong.
On what?
Well, how many times have you heard me talk about the registered agent? Was I the first one to bring it up? No. First one I heard was KW. Second one was Eon. And then I got people that I personally know that use this argument in court and win. Okay? And that is not something you hear the common people talk about that's in this movement. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You also don't have people talking about the fact that it is their property. People think, oh, that's my name, it's mine. No, It's theirs. They created it. What you create, you control. They created it. It is a fiction of their creation. That doesn't
So,
mean it's illegal.
so do you not believe or disagree with a secured party or secured creditor
I agree
thing now?
with what they're espousing, because what are they teaching? They're teaching you to do what? Learn how to establish a trust and manage it. That part I agree with. But I don't agree with one, you can't do a security agreement with yourself. So how do you get around that? You go set you up an LLC and make it the trustee. Okay? The LLC can do a security agreement with the fictitious name. Okay? The other thing I don't agree with is the UCC1 as they apply it. Why? One, it's their property. How are you going to establish a security agreement? I mean, not a security agreement, a security interest. Before you can do a UCC1, and a UCC1 is nothing more than a public announcement that you have some type of security interest. And the reason why the SPC process is wrong is they're making presumptions that's their name and the state stole it. And so since it's their name and they have a security interest,
That's
they
not how
filed
I
the
was explained.
UCC1. Well, I know
No,
that's not how they explain it,
well,
but
okay,
look
here.
at the basis
She,
of their teaching.
the one who taught me about the security agreement, she said that because we are the implied beneficiaries, right? You know, just by how things are going, that, you know, how they even could make the trust, you know, without our existence, they couldn't make it. So we're the beneficiaries, and that's why we have a right to do a security agreement against the, you know, whatever the trust that was designed
Yes,
for us,
now,
right?
and what is the basis of that information? They are saying that's my name.
No,
So
they're not.
they stole.
She's not saying that you know, that we're saying that that's our name. She's saying that the trust was made for us, that we're the beneficiaries, and that's why we get to put the first lien on it, because we're the ones who bring the value. We're the only ones who bring the value to the trust. So we have first lien before everybody else. And I think if you make an LLC, then you're again operating in their you know, public thing. If you use or create an LLC, right? So how does that take you out of the public?
No, sorry, that my thing dropped for some reason. Now, people make a presumption that they're the beneficiary. Well, go study trust law. What is the rights of the beneficiary, and what should the beneficiary do, and how should the trustees act in relation to the beneficiary? If you're the beneficiary, they're not acting like it. You're not getting the distribution. Have you ever received a K-1 distribution report to notify the beneficiary of what the distribution is and if the taxes were paid? No, you haven't. So
Well, I
people
mean,
making
beneficiary as in,
presumptions.
beneficiary as in when you become the age that you're going to get Social Security payments, right?
But you're still
It's not a
making the
benefit. That's not a
presumption.
beneficiary right. That's a
Yeah,
benefit and a privilege. That's the
that's a
difference
benefit and a
between the two.
privilege. Yeah. See, a beneficiary, if the trustees are doing their fiduciary duty, a beneficiary holds no liability either. But guess what? Who's holding all the liability? You.
Well, she says what they do is they trick us into becoming the trustee, right? So the, you know, by whatever,
No,
tricks
they're
that they
not
do.
tricking you to be the trustee. You can't be the trustee. They are treating you under trustee descent tort. Why are they treating you under trustee descent tort? Is because you are trying to make decisions and operate the trust without legal authority.
Okay, so explain again how Social Security payments are not, uh, does not mean that you are the beneficiary of that trust.
You haven't studied trust
Let me
law very
explain
long.
this one, Pastor. Let me get
Okay.
this one. Okay, so you have a public and a private. There's a public constructive trust, the PCT. Underneath the PCT is a bunch of little sister KV trusts that are all being managed by the PCT. Okay, so if you are a beneficiary, then that means that you are a beneficiary under the public constructive trust, not your estate trust. When you become the beneficiary, you become the beneficiary under your trust. That's the difference, is that the benefits and privileges that are being allotted from you being a worker bee and putting in the hard work, you get benefits and privileges at the end of the line as a reward for that work. But if you're the beneficiary, you're in a completely different classification because you're no longer under the public constructive trust. You're under your own estate, and you're claiming the right as the beneficiary of that estate. The other ones are claiming benefits and privileges under the public constructive trust. They're two completely different things. And I yield.
Now, go look at that definition of trustee descent tort. I just posted in the group. Okay, it says someone who, without legal authority, administers a living person's property to the detriment of the property owner.
Okay.
So in this case, you are not the trustee, but you go into these things making decisions for the trust like you own it, running up the national debt because you're not doing the proper paperwork and doing things the right way. Plus, if you study trust law, trustees have the right to create other trusts. What is the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights? When you realize it's a trust indenture and the trustees are Congress and the government officials, and they have the right to create other trusts, you start realizing, wait a minute, it's not mine, it's theirs. They have the right and the authority to do what they're doing. The Declaration of Independence is a declaration of trust. The Constitution is the rules the trustees have to follow. The Bill of Rights is the constitutionally protected rights that the beneficiaries of the trust receive. And the trustees are Congress. The trustees can create other trusts. That's why they did the Trading with the Enemy Act, created more trusts. That's why they did the Social Security Act, created more trust. And they said, here, because the country went bankrupt, we have to give you equal exchange. So they said, hey, allow us to use the property, because they mortgaged all the homes and all the property of the people for what? Okay? So they could get currency to keep the country afloat. They said, hey, let us use all this. We will give you an equal exchange. They gave you this entity that looks like your name to operate in commerce, but you're not doing it right. And since you're not doing it right, you're being treated as trustee descent tort, not the trustee.
Is there anyone else that talks about trustee descent tort?
Yeah, Boris.
Okay, besides him. I mean, someone who, like, maybe one of the founding people or in the past, or someone who wrote something.
Boris has been at this longer than I have, and I've been at it 10 years. Does it matter who is talking about it before you will listen?
I mean, that's your guys' theory, but okay, what is the
It's
proof
not
that?
my theory. It's in their laws.
So where can you see that they treat us as the what is it, trustee de Santort? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
With the term trustee de Santort. How do you?
Pastor. Thank you, Pastor, for posting that on the wall so we could read it.
You're welcome. That is straight from Black's Law Dictionary. It's in their laws. It's in their rules. But guess what nobody does? They don't go read. You're wanting some other teacher that has, in your mind, will confirm what I'm saying, and all I'm doing is giving you their source information where they say it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look at it once I leave this chat because I'm in National USA. That's how I connected, and I guess it's not. I'm gonna have to leave here in order to read that in the other thing. So.
And that's why I harp on this. Quit listening to all these supposed gurus. Start looking up what they're saying, reading the government's documents for yourself, because what will happen when you do that is you won't need me.
Pastor,
you won't need Boris. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Rebecca, and just listening, I think this is something I've been caught up in myself, and just, until I see it with my eyes and read it in the documents to understand what's going on, because there's a lot of stories and a lot of people sharing a lot of things, and I've gone on the journey for a while now, and it's what's settling in my heart as being the right thing to do as I step forward is no matter who's saying what, I need to look at the documents, read them for myself so I can understand them. For those that have found themselves in court or before a judge, avoid it as much as you possibly can, because that's not for us, you guys. If you find yourself in that situation, ask the judge, whose name shall I put on the 8300? And that will dismiss the case, because once you get the name of the person that goes on the 8300, that means who here is getting paid more than $10,000 for this case. Give me your name. And you can request it of anybody in that courtroom that's standing before you on the other side of the bar, if you find yourself in that situation. And the name that goes on the 8300 then gets turned into the IRS, and they know that, and they will dismiss it and run out of the room. Read the document. Don't listen to what I'm saying as a story, because it is a story from Rebecca today at this moment. Until you read the document, you're going to say, hey, this lady I heard said, and guess who I heard it from? A friend of mine who was in court last week, and she went before the judge. She asked this, and they dismissed it. Everything. Yeah. Everything.
And Susan, I mean no offense, you were saying the same thing. This person told me. That's hearsay. This person told me. You cannot live that way. You need to say, what did they say? What is in their documents? If you're not reading their stuff, because they tell you everything. They tell you how it works. They tell you what to do. If you're not reading their stuff, you're never going to be successful in this.
Okay, well, so you know how they give us 80 to 90% truth and then lies. How do we know that in all their documents, everything is truthful and everything is, the way we should? I mean, if we just read it, that we could understand clearly what we have to do without getting trapped or, whatever. How do we know that there's no traps in those things?
Because they have to publish everything. Because why? It's do you agree to the contract? Everything in this system is a contract. And if you don't know the rules to the game, you can't operate. If you go play Monopoly, but if you go try to play Monopoly, but you got the rule book for checkers, how are you going to play the game? You haven't even read the rules.
Okay, so you're saying you could trust what they put in their documents as
because
truth.
Why?
Uh-huh.
If you've got You've got the United States statutes at large. You can download them. You've got the United States Constitution with analysis and interpretation. You can download it. See, for a contract to be effective, you have to have full disclosure. Most of the people in this movement says they didn't give me full disclosure. Bullshit. Why? They published everything. You didn't read it.
That's the thing. Like, how do we know everything that they publish? How do we know of all those things that we should be
Because
reading?
why? The judges are beholden to the Constitution. And what is the first thing no one has read? The United States Constitution with analysis and interpretation to see how it applies the most important document. Everybody in this country says that is the law of the land, but they never go study it.
Okay,
It's
listen.
for them,
but
not us. That
right.
Constitution is for
Did,
them, and we don't know it enough to really bring it in front of them. And because of that, they run amok over the top of us because we're scared of
didn't
them,
I just
afraid of them, or whatever.
right? Didn't I just read in one of the documents posted under National USA that the Constitution is not for us? It's right. It's for them.
That
It's not.
doesn't
It
mean
doesn't
you
apply to us.
ignore it. No, it doesn't mean you ignore it.
We need to know it enough so that we
To
can
hold
understand
them
when they're
to it.
stepping over. Yeah, when they're stepping over with their power into our private and personal matters, what happens is we don't understand, and then we stand under them when they ask, "Do you understand?" We say, "Yeah," or we stand under them. We put ourselves in
If
jeopardy
it
by our
wasn't
own
written for us,
language.
if it wasn't written for us, why does it apply to us, though?
How
That's my
can
No,
question.
it
you
was written. Oh my
never,
gosh, it was
Hold
written.
them
never,
accountable.
never said it applies to you? But how are you going to defend your rights and know what they are supposed to do and hold them accountable to it if you don't study it? See, you're going into their system saying it don't apply to me. Well, that may be true, but that's not how you win.
May I ask, or just to bring this forward, because of I understand exactly. Susan, listen to this. And when you play the game Monopoly, do you know what happens when the bank runs out of money in the rules? Can't answer that
I don't know.
question. It is in the rules. It is in the rules. And for the person that knows what the answer is, they get to play by their rules. And that's the difference here. You're playing a game Monopoly and you don't know the rules, but the person who does know the rules knows how to win the game. And guess what happens? The bank can print more money, just use another piece of paper. It doesn't even have to be the blue or the red or the green money. You can just use another piece of paper or make up money. And guess what the Federal Reserve has done? They've made up money, and we just believe it's true. It's just they put some numbers on paper, and we think it's still the same money that we thought we started the game with, but we didn't understand the rules.
So how are you using this to apply to the Constitution question? Like, I didn't get that answered. Like, why does it?
It's the same application. The reason you read it and study
You're saying
it,
the Constitution is the rules. It doesn't apply. I mean, it wasn't made for us, but it applies to us.
Listen,
you have two constitutions. You have a state constitution.
The other parts of the Constitution apply to the public officials. The only part that applies to you is the Bill of Rights. Everything else is checks and balances on the government that you need to learn in order to keep them in check and balance.
Give you an example. And I've learned this one from Usafail. You go into court and say, we'll just hypothetically say it's a criminal charge. Your Honor, when the judge asks, do you understand the charges? No, Your Honor. I do not understand the charges because according to the Constitution, there's only two criminal jurisdictions, one under the common law and one under the colorable law of admiralty. For and on the record, Your Honor, which jurisdiction is this criminal matter in? Because according to the Sixth Amendment, I have the right to know the nature and cause of this action. But guess what you don't do? You don't study the Constitution to know that.
I don't know. That just sounds that's so unclear, whatever that is. But anyways, you wouldn't call a judge
It's
your honor,
only,
right?
I don't have a problem calling them Your Honor, because one thing I've discovered with the judges I've been in front of, if you give them the power to defend your rights because you know them, they will.
Hmm.
Your ignorance because you refuse to study their stuff is what's getting you in trouble.
I mean, that's a very strong statement. I mean, if
It's a
you,
truthful statement.
I mean, but do you have enough to back up that you've got the right
Yes.
way?
Yes. I used it in a recent traffic ticket. They sealed it and dismissed it. Dawn has heard the phone recording. Fearless Floyd interviewed me because I sent him the phone recording to prove what I said.
Right. So what did you say again to them for them to seal
I
it?
went after the I had the EIN, and I said, I called the clerk. I didn't even have to go to court. I called the clerk 12 days before court. And I said, I need to speak to the court clerk. She said, well, there's 3 of us here. And I said, well, ma'am, I need to speak to the one that manages the courthouse that makes sure everything runs right. She said, that'll be me. I said, well, I need to verify your EIN for tax reporting purposes because I have a debt instrument in my possession. Now, why did I say that? Because the ticket is a debt instrument. It's an instrument of value. It's a security. Okay. Why do I know that? Because of banking, because of the rules of banking, because I've been studying the rules of banking.
So you're asking the clerk for their EIN number?
No, I did not. I already had it. And I read the EIN, and she says, well, I cannot verify that's what it is. You might need to talk to Barbara down at the town hall. And I said, well, I'll get her number here in a moment. And I said, my next question is, what is the penal sum for this instrument? Because everything in the courts has a penal sum attached. Okay? And she said, now she lied and she said, well, I don't know what that is and how to get it. So I give her the instrument number and she says, are you giving me a ticket number? I said, ma'am, if you believe that's what it is, it's on you. The way I see it, it's an instrument of value or a debt instrument. And under Title 18 USC 8, it's an obligation of the United States. And then she asked, was I the name? And I said, well, ma'am, I said, that name is owned by the United States and they are the secured party in this matter. Now, I slipped at this point. I meant to say registered agent. I said beneficiary. But what I said after I said I'm the beneficiary is I said what the duty of the registered agent was. I said, it is my duty to notify the principal of anything that affects its interest. And she says, can you hold a moment? I said, yes, ma'am. And she come back and said, well, that matter's been sealed and dismissed.
So
I
did she
said,
tell
well,
you that she did that?
she didn't say who sealed it and dismissed it.
Well, how do you know that it
Under,
wasn't done before she even looked at it?
because it was done that day. My court date was the 28th. This was on March 16th.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
But by that you're
I,
assuming she did it.
I have no
She sealed it.
option but that. Because why? If you listen to the phone call, you realize that she probably did, but they're never going to tell you this stuff in public.
So the first thing you asked for was her EIN because you treated it as a debt instrument, and so you asked for an EIN so that it could
I
so
didn't
that they
ask for
could.
it. I already had it.
Okay, so then what did you ask her?
I asked her to verify it.
Oh, verify the EIN. Okay.
Yeah, and what did Rebecca say? Go in there and say, hey, what name should I put on? What did you call it? The 8830 or 8030 or whatever? Why? It's a tax form. They are trading these cases as securities on the municipal bond market through the court registry investment system. But
Now,
because
has
you
anyone
don't
tracked
go,
theirs to see that it was traded? Has anyone like actually looked at that to see if it was traded on the
you tell me
municipal bond market?
you're not gonna get that information. Not without going to a broker that has access to a Bloomberg terminal.
And it's called the 8300 form.
8300, okay.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't just go by what I'm saying. Everyone should just go to irs.gov, pull up the document, and it's easy to read these documents. This is part of our reporting process as living souls. We were never to file taxes. Those are for the corporation, but we believe we're supposed to fill out the 1040 and sign it and send it in. Do not ever sign that. You guys are living souls. Those forms were meant for corporations. We're only supposed to report when these corporations overstep the rules, in a sense, as you look at this and reading the rules of the game. And if we don't, we listen to what those professional corporations are telling us and we file taxes because we use their CPAs, which are subject to the corporation's rules of the game. And we haven't listened for ourselves to the truth that we were never to file taxes. We are to report. And this is part of the reporting. If you find yourself in court and you ask for that basically you're saying, I'm going to report this court and this bond that you're creating by me standing here in your courtroom. You are creating me as a security, or through this process, my social security number, part of your security. And I'm going to claim that because they're making more than $10,000 on that court appearance by me standing here, right? So you're saying, I see you, I hear you, and I'm going to report you. And they will dismiss the case because they don't want to be found out, period.
Look, Dawn just put an audio file the other day in her group where that fourth traffic ticket, what did the clerk in that case say? Somebody else paid it, and we can't tell you who it was, and we can't tell you how much it was. But they got rid of the case. We can only make the presumption it was the Treasury because why? We know who is tied to what.
But she did it differently than you. She just said, I don't want a contract with you.
Not,
right?
Yep,
She didn't ask for the EIN. She just said, I don't want a contract.
That's right. Because why? She tried it. She did it her way. And look at the results. It still shows somebody else paid it other than her.
Could you please repeat that form number, 83 something?
8300.
Thank you.
See, Susan, that's the part that bothers me with a lot of people. They would rather listen to a teacher than go read the documents for themselves.
Well, I mean, the thing is there's so many things to read, right? And it's like,
it doesn't
so
matter.
What do you need to read? And also, I still don't get it about the Constitution because, like, for me, I want to say natural law applies to me, but why should I say the Constitution applies to me?
The Constitution, no, you have two constitutions you need to study. You have the Constitution of the state that you live in, and you have the federal Constitution. Okay, you are refusing to study the two most important documents that will give you the freedom you need. Saying, why does it apply to me? Why does it matter?
And that's what you're not answering. Why does it apply?
Because government was established by God. Now let's hypothetically say you don't believe.
Okay,
in God,
so you believe in government being under the government.
Yeah,
no,
man's government
was
not created by God.
Let me finish. Now I disagree with you, sir, and let me finish. It says that God instituted government to do what? Punish the wicked. Okay. Now, if you don't believe in God, fine. Under natural law, when a tribe is created, the strong rise to the top and create rules for the benefit of the tribe. That is still government. And so many people are so willing to fight against what is just and right and say it don't apply to me. So you're very quick to fight against God or nature, and either way, you are going to come out with a bad outcome.
And when
This
it comes to
government
the
was
Cesta
established
QB
on the
trust,
principles of the Bible, and nobody wants to read those principles.
but people want to read what's going to benefit them, so they'll take the benefits, and they don't want to understand the rules of the game. And that's what's different here. I think this is our opportunity to wake up and realize and take responsibility for what we haven't decided to do, and that's to learn who we are,
Look,
whose we
people
are, and
always,
this whole process.
okay, people are always saying, oh, who, let's say the people who didn't want to take the vaccines, right? There's, you're violating my constitutional rights, and well, people always use that argument, right? But it never works, right? So why doesn't it work? I mean, is it just a matter of you have to change your status and you have to rebut all the presumptions and then it'll apply to you? Is that what you believe?
No. How can you talk about changing status when you don't even know what your status is to even see what you have to change?
I don't know, authenticating whatever, the COLB, and then declaring yourself American national.
I shared a document earlier in the national group, and I said what? I said, if people could grasp this, and this document, I copied and pasted it from an email, okay? It is hearsay. I will be honest about that. To me, it's hearsay. Mark up in Minnesota is the one that shared it with me. Mark knew this guy personally. Okay? I have read this email numerous times. And
what about
did the guy do in tax court? Everything the guy said in tax court was 100% according to the principles of law. Okay? He never filed anything in the court with the DA, nothing. Okay? He rebutted all their presumptions based on what? The law. First-hand knowledge. Okay? And people don't want to understand that. All I'm telling you is that, hey, you want to learn to be free? Learn how the rules are played so you can be. And Susan, no offense, you are one of the ones that argue against this all the time.
I'm just trying to understand it because it doesn't make sense sometimes what you say, and you jump to things like it's not, you're not teaching it in an organized way where the whatever person who hasn't been studying for 10 years or whatever can easily understand it, and you. I'm telling you, it's not easy to understand this.
Do I show where I get it from?
I don't know.
Yes, I do.
I have to.
When you say you own the name, I say, look at the back of your social security card. It says they own it.
Hey, Pastor, can I get a second, please?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of, sit on the fence with Susan. I hear a lot of stuff, and just to back it up, about 20 minutes ago, somebody made the statement that there are no judges. And then 5 minutes later, it's like, yeah, you have to, I call the judge Your Honor.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm with you, Susan. I'm not saying that you said it, but everybody kind of goes along with the idea of they're only magistrates. Then others, will always talk about a judge, and it's never like, crystal clear of, what are we doing? Because I
It
think
is.
I think the Article 3, right,
Hmm.
doesn't exist anymore, and
Yeah,
those
it
are the
does.
real judges. It's confusing when you hear that, and that's all I'm saying, Pastor.
And I think
It.
that, some people
Listen.
disagree with you. They don't think that we should legitimize the fictional courts and that we should, be under some government or whatever. So
Let
there's
me.
the difference there.
Let
You're
me
making the
explain,
assumption
sir.
everybody should believe that.
No, we've
No,
been
I'm
called
not
into a
making.
kingdom not of this world, separate
No,
government,
I am
Christ's
not.
kingdom. And you're
I
preaching the
am.
kingdoms of men and to submit to them and to go and ask them permission. And that's not what we're called to do in the gospel at all.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like the guy just said, Article 3 courts he don't think exist no more. Well, that's actually not totally true. But that goes to prove you don't understand the Constitution. Because why? Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3. You have 3 branches of government. Each branch of government
I don't
has its.
understand it because it's a con document. It's right in the name. It's a con.
Let me
It's a
let me
con on the
finish.
people.
Let me finish, please. All 3 have their own courts. You've got Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3 courts. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 gave Congress the right to create inferior tribunals, and they did. Article 2 has military courts. Because why? That's the executive branch and who runs the military. Article 3 is the judicial branch. Now, when you go look at Article 1 courts, you've got every administrative agency has their own court. You got Department of Health and Human Services. They have family court. IRS has tax court. Department of Motor Vehicles has traffic court. All of these, through the delegation of powers doctrine of Congress, handed those administrative agencies over to the executive branch. Go look at what the average person out there does. They blame Trump or they blame Biden. Do you think the government cares? Why don't they care? Because you're pointing the finger at the wrong person because you won't study the document.
No, we get the
Congress
documents. I
passes
mean,
the law.
back to the inferior courts. You're telling us to submit to them.
I didn't say submit. Did I? Not once.
To go through their processes is to submit.
I'm
No,
saying, I'm
it's
saying,
education.
I'm saying, if you follow the rules and learn the rules, the administrative courts can't touch you. And
It's
everybody
part of that.
Okay,
fights
so
about the
so
rules.
wait, Pastor, wait. So when you made that comment about I call them Your Honor because after all, if I understand the law, then they'll work on the behalf of me. Did I get that right?
I call them by their first name, and it pisses them off. They don't like that.
Well, yeah, it pisses them off.
I
Yeah, it
refuse to
does.
call them honorable. There's nothing honorable about what they do.
Hey,
And we know
you
this.
know, I appreciate
The
what people
reason,
do, and there's others here that are trying to grasp some of this comprehension. So I'll ask Pastor again, when you made that comment of you call them their honor, because if you understand, then they'll know that they'll understand, and then they'll work on the behalf of you. Is that correct?
this is what the Bible says we should do. We give due respect. So I'm going to call him sir or your honor.
We're
Because
told not to
why?
respect
I'm
titles
going to give him due respect.
or persons.
Okay? I'm going to give honor where honor is due.
Why is honor due to a dishonorable, fraudulent administrator
You
of
think
statute,
it's
code, and regulation?
You think it's dishonorable because why? You fight against the system
No.
instead of learning the rules, what you're saying.
I understand the concept of a belligerent, and I understand that when you're consenting and contracting into that system, then you're obligated to that system. But when you've come out from that system, and when you've made separation from that system, and that system continues to ignore what you very clearly stated to them, where do you go from there?
They didn't ignore me.
Well, everybody says they've done this and that. I want to know how many people have used these methods to get our children back. Have you gotten
I
any
did it in a
children back?
family court. I did it in my family court case. I did the GSA bonds, made them
At
go
any
away.
point in the process of them removing children, putting them in foster care, we should be able to stop them in their tracks, wherever. Because I hear of a lot of people that stop them in the beginning. That's easy. It's a little more complicated when they've got you entrapped in the system and you've been in it for years.
I did the GSA bonds in a family court case and made them go away.
Thank you for doing that.
What are GSA bonds? I looked.
It's the General Service Administration. It's a set of paperwork that goes with the petition, because the petition is a security instrument that you submit to the proper parties to ensure the case. See, that's why I keep saying, learn the rules, study the stuff. They will tell you everything.
Hey, I want to touch on what he was saying a little bit about the dishonor thing going into the courthouse, right? When you're going into another man's house, regardless of whether you agree with the way that he conducts his house or he does his business at his house, you're still going to his house. So you have to have a measure of respect for that, or you're going to be tossed out on your head or thrown in jail. So
it's not a house, it's a pagan temple.
Well, I get all that, okay, but I'm just giving you the basic principle of how it works, right? I won't disagree with anything else that you said about it being a con or any of those things, because I agree. We all know it's fiction. We all know it's de facto, but when you wind up in the de facto situation, you must handle yourself accordingly and realize where you're at and whose house you're in, or you're going to be getting yourself into a lot of trouble. So like Yusavelle says, he says there's 3 things to staying in the private. A, you stay the hell out of their venue. Okay, you stay in honor at all times, and you don't use that social security number. So if you wind up in that venue, you're not going to go in there and dishonor their system, okay, and start arguing and fighting, because now you are in dishonor. And the whole point of this is you staying in honor no matter what anyone else does. You're not responsible.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, what are the technicalities of staying in honor? That's what we have to learn. But
because that's what we're talking about. And Susan mentioned going in under special appearance.
Well, I get that, but let me finish, guys.
you know,
So doing things our way versus their way is what shows that we're distinctly separate from them. Why
and
should we be
that's what
fashioning and
Tazadot
modeling
teaches, right?
our paperwork
Because
after theirs?
the whole thing that I've been learning is that, you know, the whole goal is to put yourself under the private so the public can't touch you, right? You want to put yourself in the private realm, and you don't want the public arena to, you know, to apply to you. So then, you know, what is the way then to be in the private so you don't have to?
Susan, you have to stay in honor at all costs. If you step out of your square,
That's what, okay, if that's what USFL says, but I don't think USFL is the, you know.
What I'm saying, because you're not listening. Okay, listen to
Well,
what
let
I'm
me
saying.
I got a question for you,
You have to
Jesse.
stay in
Jesse,
honor at all times with these people, regardless of what they're doing, so that you can come back and make the claim. If you go in there and you
It
don't
is
have
confusing, though. It is confusing when people say, okay, this means you're bringing controversy. This is like, what can you do then? You can't even, like, you know, go after someone for injuring you because you're bringing controversy. So what can you do by, you know, and not bring controversy?
Educate yourself. Educate yourself into what you're learning about. This is what he's talking about.
But here he's directing people to educate themselves in man defining honor. Who defines honor? Who defines the rules?
Kindergarten. We are all
Who told us what the kingdom entails?
You define what the honor is by your actions. It is written or implied or expressed.
No, the Father defines what honor is. We're to remain in honor with Him, not in honor with the fucking corrupt systems of men.
Hold on, Jack. Hold on, Jack. Hold on, Jack. Jack, do you deny what Romans 13:7 says? Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due.
No, not at all. What I do is I acknowledge who those higher powers are that are being talked about. And those higher powers are not Black Reed Pro. You know, the government.
Jack, let him finish. Let him finish, Jack.
Look, you render on, it says submission to the authorities. Now, I do not teach that you submit in every instance.
Who are the authorities?
In other words, if it denies, if it
they are usurping the authority.
Hold on, Jack. If it conflicts with Scripture, then you ignore it. But it says in Romans 13, 1 through 7, submission to authorities. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For
Those
there
higher
is
powers are
no,
not what you're defining
hold
them as.
on, stop.
It conflicts
For
scriptures. That's what you're saying. If it
no, it
conflicts, it
doesn't.
does. You're misdefining what's being said in Romans 13. And this has been going on for generations and generations and generations. They are not legitimate authorities. And we're being
This is
called
your
to
opinion,
separate
Jack.
us.
This
No,
is
it's what
your
the scripture
opinion,
says.
Jack.
It's what Messiah. Look at what Messiah did. Look at what he did, because that's what we're called to do, is follow him. How did he refer to Pontius Pilate?
But
What kind of honor did
Jesus
he show?
do?
He wouldn't even answer his questions.
What would
Jack,
Jesus
Jack,
do?
you won't even shut your mouth long enough for me to finish. You
Well,
just
that's
want to
because we've
push
all
your
had to hear your
opinion.
mouth run so long, and you're speaking so many
You don't
contradictions,
have
and
to
you're
hear
spreading
nothing.
confusion.
You
How many
can
children have
leave.
you brought home? That's the only thing that matters in all of these groups, because that's where the Father's heart is. Pure religion, define that for me in the scriptures.
You don't have to hear nothing. You can leave. You choose to be here.
Well, I get that their court system, they run sort of the world, right? And so, and they, if they, I guess, use this system and they honor it and they go by it, if you're doing the steps right, then,
We're told we cannot
then I
serve
guess,
God and mammon. Their system is mammon. We're to be serving the Father. We're to give them back what's theirs, what's Caesar's, and we're to give
So
God
do
back what's his.
so again, do you disregard what Romans 13 says?
No, I already answered you. I told you I don't define higher powers in the authorities the way you do, and
You
neither do a
don't.
lot of people. I'm not on my
God,
own, sir.
the Bible does. The Bible says, whoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will
But that's
thou?
exactly what they're doing, and that's what disqualifies them as the powers that you're
No,
saying they
you
are. They
see
are a
it as
terror to good works.
evil. You see it. You see certain things as evil when you
What
don't
they're
even
doing is
understand
evil.
the system. Well, to the kids, yes, but we're not talking about just that subject.
That's the biggest subject, sir.
I'm not saying it's not a big subject,
It's the
but
biggest
to
subject.
relate.
You're downplaying
But
it, and you continue to downplay it, and so does
no, I
everybody else
don't
in all of these groups.
downplay it. No,
We
I don't.
need to get our children back.
Jack, please
We need to
stop.
protect the children.
Jack,
Stop.
Jack, what you're not getting at in these groups is we are trying to tell people how to get
How to
themselves
compromise.
free. No, not how to compromise.
where does it say in the Bible we should follow the rules of the Constitution?
The Constitution are the rules that the government put in place. So when it
Sure,
says
the
rulers are
Constitution should
not
protect our
a
rights. I agree.
terror to good works, but to the evil, wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good, but if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. What are they talking about here?
Trickery. They're using
Respecting your government that you are under, unless
That's your
it
interpretation.
unless it defies Scripture.
But doesn't it defy Scripture?
Not in every instance.
According to
No,
his interpretation, it does.
not
No, they're
not in my
using
interpretation. Do you know 93% of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights come
It's
directly
based
out of
on
the book of
Scripture.
Deuteronomy? It come
Okay,
right out of
well,
the book of Deuteronomy.
what about those people who don't believe in the Bible?
Then
What
it's there
about
by natural law. It
Are
doesn't
you
matter
familiar
if
with
you
Ted
believe
Weiland's?
in it. They took it from the Bible. So all you're doing, Susan, is making
No,
excuses.
no, they didn't. The Constitution is one of the most ungodly, unbiblical documents there
Okay,
there
I
is.
will
There's
prove
books
it.
written on
I
it.
will prove
Books.
it.
I mean, are you
Yeah,
familiar
and
with Ted Weiland? Look it up. U.S. Constitution versus the Bible. Real
Jack,
simple. Google search. You'll be
Jack,
loaded up
what
with the
he's
truth.
saying is that they're using trickery words. They're using things to trick you into believing a certain way. Okay, we've got to untangle the web
No, no, no,
that
no.
they
I'm
have
not tricked
webbed.
anymore. They did that. They have done that
Okay,
to all of us. I agree.
then if you're not allowing to put in the work and find out the reason how to get out. All you want to do is argue.
I'm not arguing. I'm out. I've been out for 7 years. I don't use numbers. I don't do the things you people do. I'm not fighting to maintain finances and assets and property other than children, because that's the most important property of the Most High.
That is
Show me
part
otherwise
of
in the
it.
scriptures.
The
He's telling
children
us to
are
lay
part of
down.
it.
He's
That you
telling
don't
us to lay down our
understand.
lives of mammon, of serving mammon, of doing service to mammon. He's telling us not to worry about what we have, what we're going to eat, what we're going to wear. And you people are telling everybody how to file the proper paperwork so that they can have the state provide better for them.
No, that's not.
No, that's not what we're saying.
Well, what is it to establish your status in such a
Thank
way
you.
that you're discharging debts?
Thank you,
I mean, I heard
Pastor,
just
in what you're saying. I understand you, but there are some people that just can't get it in their
serve
head
mammon. You're right.
of
There's
how
some
to
people that refuse to
understand.
serve God and mammon because it can't be done. You're in the delusion.
No, look, right
You're
here. I'm going to
judging.
share. I'm going to share a document. I'm going to share a document in the group. Okay. Look at here. That document is a 341-page document that shows all the evidence where they got everything they did in setting up this system of government directly from the Bible. So you can say what you want. The evidence is against you. This is the only country that's ever been set up on the Bible. And everybody runs around and says, no, it wasn't. They wasn't Christians. They were deists. It don't matter. What did they use to set it up? They admit everything, but the people won't read.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Hello, Pastor of the Way. It is Fearless Floyd, and I'm going to go ahead and make this announcement to you guys as well. I just posted it. I am not going to be the fucking post police to post every post that's in this fucking group. Okay? I'm not going to do it. I will
I didn't see what he
remove you.
posted.
I'm talking about name, surname. Okay?
Yeah, I didn't
He
see
wants
what
to
he posted.
run. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Motherfucker got on my nerves. He's done this. He's got warned. And I told him we need to have a personal conversation. We don't reach out. 86, motherfucker. Eat it. That's how I look at this, okay? This is all about us having a venue to interact, share knowledge, experiences, and wisdom, to push each other up, to get to where we want to go. This isn't to belittle other people because they just got here. No, fuck that. And I don't care how smart you are, what status you have. I don't give a goddamn. But I'm not going to sit here and spend my life managing all this. You guys don't understand. I got to have a life. I got to make money to pay bills. And I just don't have the time to do every fucking thing that needs to be done for this group, for this channel, for everything. To do the videos, all of that. So if somebody in this group, and Pastor, and Jesse, and Kimberly, y'all are all administrators. Y'all need to fucking start stepping up and handle that shit. Okay? And when you do these chats need to be recorded. Every fucking one of them. Okay? I'm pissed, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I'm sitting here at work monitoring you guys. I pop in on these chats every now and then to see what y'all talking about. They need to be recorded. The recording needs to be DM'd to me, to my personal account, so I can upload it to my platforms. Okay? I don't care if you load it on your platform. I don't give a damn. Okay? It's starting to get where it's going to get out of control if it's not managed now. And I hope you guys understand that. Because there's so many posts that when I'm doing something, I don't have time to go back and read 300 fucking posts to find something that I need to pin that was very important. Or when you post something, if you don't put a title on it, and I don't know what the fuck it is, I'm just going to go right by it. And it could be really important to a lot of other people. So when you do post stuff, put a title on it. That's all you got to do. And if it needs to be pinned, just put right under it. Please pin this. And it'll get pinned if it's important information. Please don't let this get out of control and have me shut it down to where nobody can post until I turn it on, or nobody can get in a chat until I turn it on, because that's going to suck for everybody. And that's not what this is about. This is about an open forum so everybody can move ahead. We can all share information as we have it, as we get it. This isn't about arguing, belittling anybody. No, I will not have that. Absolutely not. Okay? This is about sharing information. We can have a debate. We can agree to disagree. We can also have different methodologies to get to the same place. One way, there may be two right ways, because it happens.
Yeah.
People do it this way and it works. People do it this way and it works. Okay, well, there's no right or wrong way. Just both those ways were successful.
Well, bottom line, we need each other. Without each other, we're all going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah. Divide and conquer. Yeah.
So, Floyd,
You know,
I'm
yes.
30 minutes from the center of town.
I'm at the George R. Brown.
They got
I'm
room
like
for a
at
truck?
Are you fucking kidding me? It's all that's here.
Oh, nothing but trucks? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right now
It's the
sitting at the
convention center.
Loves. I'm sitting at the Loves right outside of town because I bloated tires. So they
What,
said it'll
where
be
you
at
at,
least
on
3
I-10?
o'clock. Yeah,
Are you on I-10?
yeah.
I'm in East
Let's
Downtown.
see. I'm on the west side at exit 737.
Well, that didn't tell me anything. What,
I'm
cross street?
in Katy, Texas.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're on the other side of Houston. I'm
Yeah,
on East Downtown, on the other side of
yeah.
downtown.
I had to stop here because I bloated a tire.
Oh, that's all. But yeah, anyway.
Oh man, speaking of blown tires, y'all are not going to believe how expensive tires are now.
Oh, I know. Everything's going up.
The tires now, last year, the tires for my truck, I could put 4 tires on the drive axles for, let's see, 8 for about 4,000. Now it's costing 8,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, toner. I just had to reorder toner. Toner almost doubled in price.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is insane. Actually, I was talking to a guy today, and the contract for the Grand Opera is up for renewal, and they want to give us a 20 or 40 cent raise. I'm like, I almost fell down laughing. Anyway, let me finish, and then I've got to go because I'm going to get off work here in a minute. But where are you going in town, Pastor?
I don't know. I was going to find a truck stop somewhere around town where I could park the truck and maybe drop the trailer. But I'll
Okay.
be here for a little while.
All right.
If y'all want to if y'all want to sit down and go to dinner and eat a meal, we'll sit
That's
down
fine.
and go eat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done. I'm just sitting on my ass, but I got to be on point when they point at me. Hey, what's going on?
It'll be a little bit. I'll let you know when I'm
Yeah.
done here. We'll figure out what we're going to do then.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Look, I really do not ever want to remove anybody from this group, ever. But I'm not going to accept that type of behavior because there's too many other people in here for one person to let their ego and everything else get in the way of everybody else's progress. So that's the reason, that he was removed. And, if he wants to come back into the group, he's going to have to contact me. We will have to have a private conversation. Apparently that guy has no idea who I am, where I come from, and everything that I've been through. I can sit here and dazzle you guys with all the crazy ass shit that I've done in my life. Just jaw dropping shit. You know, it's a miracle. Fucking believe me, a miracle I'm alive. Because I never even had a game plan past 30 years old. And I've doubled that. And I don't know how. I couldn't tell you how the fuck I got here. But I got here. And I've got story after 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 story, just fucking for days. Just crazy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, I've lived with the most prolific serial killer in the state of Texas, David Owen Brooks. There's only been 3 streets in the city of Houston to ever be closed down because of crime by the Houston Police Department. I've lived on all 3: Link Valley, DeSoto, and Glenmont. Been kicked out of Mexico, escorted to the border by the federales. Yeah, don't come back. Yeah. I mean, just, you know, you name it. Toured with the Rolling Stones. That's a security supervisor working for Bill Graham when I was 19 years old. Absolutely. Yeah, I've dated Playboy Playmate Centerfolds, Shay Marks, Miss May, 1994. 20th anniversary penthouse pet, Lynn Johnson. I've lived in penthouses, crack houses, fuck you name it. Stabbed, shot at, been in prison riots, tried to start prison riots, been kicked off the prison unit. I mean, investigated by the FBI twice, Postal Inspector twice, IRS, and the Secret Service.
Are you a new man in Christ?
Me? I'm spiritual. I'm a shaman because I'm an indigenous American Indian. And I can trace my lineage all the way back to, what was it, 91 AD? I'm from Tarvin, England. You can look it up, Wikipedia. So that's the deal on that. So I need you and Jesse, Pastor, to, you know, step up and take a little bit more control. You know, I don't have time to babysit this thing. I want to build the website. I want to move this forward so everybody can know what's going on. So they get notifications. Yeah. See, right now I don't have any way to send anybody notifications. I don't have an email list. I don't have any kind of contact list. And I want to get all that set up.
I'll send you my email.
I already have your email. I've got all your information, dude. You can run, but you can't hide. Okay, kids. Thank you very much, man, for getting in the group. And man, I hope all of y'all have a good day. And Pastor, I'll catch up with you later. And y'all stay out of trouble. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
That dude was being an arrogant dickhead.
I guess I missed what he was saying because I wasn't looking in the chat.
Yeah, I scrolled through it. Been scrolling through it, and yeah, he's just being an ass.
Some people are. Some people don't know how to communicate without being that way.
There's a lot of people, not some.
It's just their ego, and they don't know how to control it, and they think that they know everything, but they don't. And they don't want to research it, and they want everybody to show them what to do.
Yep, that's right.
And all you're doing, Pastor, is you're trying to help educate us and trying to help show us that way as well. I get it. And look, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Look, I go back through the decades in this country. What were the 2 books that the average person had in their house pre-1933? Now, I'm not going to say it, nail it down to that exact date. Okay. But back in the old days, they had the Bible and Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England. Because why? Our common law came from England. And the people knew their rights by studying the law. And the Bible was part of that law. And there's a book that I learned from Yusuf El. He calls it the Clerk's Praxis. But let me get you the exact title.
And didn't they get married in the Bible? Like the Bible, they had their names in it back then. And that's why it was part of it.
Yeah, well, not just that. A marriage license is a contract with the state. You have the right to do holy matrimony on your own. Now, let's see. Clerk's Praxis. The name of the book, as soon as it loads, let's see. And it actually is it's talking about the admiralty, the courts of admiralty, okay? In that book, Yusufel had a video up, and I wish you could find it, where he was reading through a section of the book talking about back then there was a war between the admiralty and the common law, and the reason the common law won was because the people knew their rights. Today, people don't know their rights. So the name of the book is called The Practice and Jurisdiction of the Court of Admiralty in 3 parts, written by John E. Hall, Esquire. And the book was written, let's see if I've got a date here, 1809. A lot of these old law books teach you the principles revolving around the type of law that you're operating in. Look, I'm a truck driver. I operate in commerce. So do I respect the license? I don't go around and say the government doesn't apply to me. I say no. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 says that the federal government has the exclusive right to regulate commerce. I'm going to respect their right. Because why? They have the right to protect the public or the public health. Do you want people out here running around in an 80,000-pound land missile unregulated? Hell no. But we're quick to disregard anything that government does like they don't have a right to do it, because the public has rights too. And what I tell people is, if you respect their rights, they will respect yours. At least that's been my experience so far.
Hey,
If I may,
Pastor, the way.
Do what, Nashawn?
Yeah, I'm back in.
Okay. Jesse, was you getting ready to say something?
if I may, I was going to say, you're correct on all that. The thing is that it wasn't Blackstone's dictionary, because actually that was started out as a joke.
No,
But
not dictionary. Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England.
I was told it was a Bouvier
No, you're thinking
dictionary.
of a dictionary. I'm thinking of a commentary. There's a difference.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
you're right. They did have just those two when they left England, was the Bible and the commentary of the law. What happened though is that the United States has gone broke 4 times. The last time was in 1933, but what changed was Erie versus Thompson, where the guy got hit with a board off of the train in 1938, and they switched it over to equity. So now nothing is law; it's all legal. And the thing is everybody keeps trying to go. They want to go back to law, but they don't know how, because everything is now just based on credits, because there is no money. What was it? They literally were breaking people's hands and stealing the gold and silver, because Woodrow Wilson signed that order to that all gold and silver was supposed to be turned in. So once they did that, they turned around and started pushing out fiat.
the thing is that it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln, uh, was it, what was his name? Andrew Jackson was the last president that actually was trying to stop the bankers from getting their hands on America. But it was Abraham Lincoln who turned around and sold America to the bankers. And ever since then, we have been nothing
Well,
but,
well, they didn't. I don't think they sold the 50 states or the 13 states or whatever time frame it was. What they did do under the Treaty of Paris was gave D.C. back to Britain. It is still under British control.
yeah, but DC also owns Canada.
And Canada is under British rule. The
Yes.
Queen.
And
And
that's
some
what,
Canadians know that, and some do not.
well, a lot of them do not, but some do know. But that's the thing. And then they turn around and keep asking us if their paperwork would, or our paperwork would work in their country, because they don't comprehend that around the world is all these bankers, and they have it all set up pretty much the same around the world. The only problem is like what was it USFL said, you want to hide something, put it in a book. And that's what they've done.
Right.
They put every law and everything that we need to know in a book, and they turn around and keep us guessing because they have intertwined legal and law in so much stuff. So they've got us where it's not so easy to find. You have to pick and choose. Plus, then also they've bastardized the English language so bad that when we think we're speaking English, we're not. We're speaking Babel. In fact, they're using what is a old language. It's called Dog Latin on us. So, and then they don't teach us all this in English class, because the way they speak is one way. The way we speak is kind of like, what is it? Like a person on the street, yo, what's up? Well, my brother and all that stuff. I mean, hey, dog, and all that. That's how we sound to them. Just as someone speaking like that to us, we were like, dude, you're talking slang. Well, that's what they're trying to tell us. They don't hear us. Plus, then also, ever since that, what was it? Chief Willie and I researched, found out that the day we're born, that's this about 3 to 90 days later, you're dead. Then they put a death certificate on the placenta. Plus, then also that's why you have to go and hire a lawyer to represent you, not represent you,
Well,
represent you.
that's part of my argument as the registered agent. It is their property, that infant placenta, whatever you want to call it, it's their property. If you were acting as that office saying it's yours, you can't speak, because why? You don't have the authority. It's their property. It's a legal fiction. It is theirs. That's
Yeah,
why
and that's
the attorney in the family court case, after I did the GSA bonds, and I recorded the phone call, I asked him, I said, so what'd you think about those things I put into the case? Oh, I can't talk to you about that because of attorney-client privilege. Now, when I did the GSA bonds and he filed his papers into the court to get removed, he admitted to his fiduciary responsibility to the accounts and the funds that he was administering.
And see, that's nothing. Why do we always want to go to their court? Why aren't we learning how to also type up liens? Because that's the thing. It's like going. Someone explained it one time to me. When you go into an ocean, you're in whose sandbox? You're in a shark's play area, their home. That's exactly what a court is. Because people do not know how it is actually set up. They don't know that already everybody that's there is already against you. And that the minute you cross that bar, you're in international waters. And they're operating under maritime law. And see, we're thinking, we're talking about law. We are not talking about maritime law. As long as you stay on one side of that bar, you're on the bank before you step into the sea. And the minute you cross that
Well,
bar,
actually, that's a misteaching that we're all under maritime law. And here's why. I made the discovery going through source documents that admiralty jurisdiction, think of it as a pyramid. Admiralty jurisdiction tells you the authority they have, right? Now, on the right side of the pyramid, you got maritime law, but nobody discusses what's on the left side of the pyramid, which is admiralty law. What I discovered was admiralty jurisdiction is a subset of the law of nations, aka international law, under the law of commerce. So you have contracts in commerce over the sea. This is the part where it's true that law of the sea, contracts that cross the waters, but you also have contracts between the nations over the land, which is admiralty law. Because why did they set up Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3? They did that to make sure the states, which are nations, played fair.
yeah, but see,
So they didn't bring the law onto the sea. Admiralty jurisdiction is commerce.
yeah, but see, that's the problem. Everybody keeps wanting to use the Constitution, but the problem is that once we went into a civil war, Abraham Lincoln was killed. We were never taken out of war, so that's why we always got to constantly have war.
The Supreme Court has stated that martial rule does not suspend the Constitution. Nothing has suspended the Constitution.
The war has that they
No, it
have
hasn't.
done.
It's in their court decisions that it's not suspended.
That's funny because the last time I heard somebody went to court, they said they had rights and they brought up the Constitution. And the judge said, mention the Constitution again, I'll get you for.
Because why? Under admiralty jurisdiction, it is contracts that you're needing to be disputing. Article 1, Section 10, the contract clause. Nobody ever looks at that.
Yeah, but see, the contracts with them,
The government can pass no law that interferes with the obligation of a contract. Implied by that is also the right to not contract. That's why I say nobody ever looks at Article 1, Section 10. It's right there in the Constitution, and that's further proof that it hasn't been suspended.
but see, the problem with the contracts are it's only beneficial for one side. The contract does not benefit both sides.
Benefits me fine.
write, no, because that's the problem. They just like the driver's license. We're supposed to follow the letter to the law, which is not law. You don't need a license to what is it called? Travel. And now
I'm not traveling. I'm in commerce.
Yes, you're in commerce because you're operating a vehicle that is taking foods to market or goods to
and
market.
Services that are in commerce, which means between the nations, called states.
And that's the other thing. The states, they're, how can I put it? They're not states, they're territories.
No, they're sovereign nations.
They
They
lost their
agreed.
sovereignty.
No, they didn't. They are still sovereign nations. Have you ever read the document, the United States, the Republic, the house no one lives in?
Yes.
The Republic still exists. The problem is everybody's operating in commerce and they don't know it.
I would like to add something to that if I could. I think the
Yes.
realization is under commercial use or commerce, but there's also diction in the regs that say that traveling for private use, not commerce.
Correct. And guess what?
There's two components to that.
I do know people personally. I know one in Indiana right now. He has no plates, no license, no registration on his car, and he travels as he sees fit.
Okay, understood. And so I was hearing both of you guys speak, and you guys are both saying the same thing, but
Yeah.
there is two components to that. One for private, which is travel, and then there's commerce for trucking and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, and this is why, this is part of what I'm saying is the reason why the Constitution is not suspended. The government is exercising their rights. The people don't understand the difference. The people don't understand what a driver's license is. If you get a ticket for driving without a license, your first question to the judge, really honestly, should be, Your Honor, what does the license represent? Does it represent a contract between me and the Department of Motor Vehicles? He's going to have to say yes. Because in its basic format, it is a contract. Then the next question should be, Your Honor, can this court order me to contract with anyone? If he says yes, then your next statement should be, well, according to the Northwest Ordinance, or the Ordinance of 1787, which is still in force and effect, that it forbids slavery and involuntary servitude. So, Your Honor, I will be more than happy to follow the court's order, but you have to give me just compensation, and my just compensation is this much per hour. What's he going to say then? He's not going to say that, yes, they can force you to do it. He's not going to say that. You're going to back him into a corner. Because Article 1, Section 10, they cannot pass a law that interferes with the obligation of a contract. Anton Scalia was in the front of Congress talking about the role of the United States Supreme Court. And what he said should prove to you it's an Article 1 court. He said the United States Supreme Court only has appellate jurisdiction. But later, he's talking about, without saying it, the Supreme Court of the United States, and said, hey, when we don't strike down your unconstitutional laws, we just ignore them. Why do they ignore them? The judges understand the right to contract. And you know, the Obamacare, the one argument nobody made on its constitutionality was Article 1, Section 10. They argued taxes, they argued this, but they never argued that. There's a reason why the attorneys don't argue that. Because they understand this too. And Jack, I agree with some of what you're posting. For a Christian civil government, they do have to profess it. Okay? And they did. That's why I shared the document I shared. It quotes their declarations and their service and acknowledgement of God.
You're talking the original states.
I'm talking about the foundation of this country and how it was built, and the Constitution.
But we know that it was usurped. We know that the men came here with a foundation in the scriptures, and that was ultimately used against them. It was inverted. It was used to manipulate them into what we have now, into the con of the Constitution.
I used to believe that stuff about the multiple constitution theory and this, that, and the other. I don't anymore. It wasn't necessarily usurped. It was the Constitution is still there, but people don't know what it is. It's a trust indenture. That's why the Congress is the trustees. The Declaration of Trust was the Declaration of Independence. The rules the trustees have to follow is the Constitution. The constitutionally protected rights, which is the beneficiaries' rights, is the first 10 amendments. Everything past the first 10 amendments was only passed by resolution, not by law. It is a mindset of Congress. It's not law. And can I prove that? Yeah, I did that in if you look up in 1865 with the 13th Amendment, you will find it was never passed by law. It was passed by resolution. A resolution isn't law. A resolution is a mindset of Congress. That's why I say all the time, if you read their stuff, they will tell you everything. A lot of people think that the Articles of Confederation don't apply no more. Yes, they do. According to the government's own record, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights came in 1776. 1 year later, the Articles of Confederation came in. They are still in effect. And the Northwest Ordinance came 10 years later in 1787.
How can they be in effect if the chain of title is broken past the Article 1 of the article?
Well, you have to interrupt their chain of title and create your own chain of title and perfect it and put it on the land and have a higher claim to it than they do. Because that's all they've done is they've come in between you and the title, and they've put in a third party so that it will come in and state on your behalf.
I'm talking about the style of the name of the country. That country doesn't exist against the Constitution or even into the Constitution.
Now, what was that question before I got interrupted?
Articles of Confederation. Article 1 states the style of this country shall be capital T, United States of America. That entity does not exist in the Constitution or in any of the documents moving forward.
It does exist. It's still there. If it's still in force and effect, it is still there. Give me a moment. I'll go to my Westlaw account and I'll show you. Let me drop my trailer and pull this around so I can get my tire changed. Oh, and I got to replace my mud flap. Damn it. Move. Now, give me 1 second here. Let's go here. Browse content. Statutes and court rules. Okay, federal. United States. USCA. Okay, now, first picture. Top of the list, the organic laws of the United States of America. And then it lists what the organic laws are. Okay? Now, I was wondering, are we still there? I was like, what the crap? Now, check this out. This tells you top of the list, organic laws. Okay? And there is the list of organic laws. If those are the organic laws in order, do they still apply? Yes, they do. But again, the people do not read and study with the intent to know this stuff.
So my question is, the country that we know as the United States or United States of America. You're telling me that that's the exact same country as Article 1 of the Articles of Confederation?
Yeah. It's still there. It's not gone anywhere.
Why is this style not ever referenced in any de facto government document from that time? You never find a capital T, United States of America, in anything after the Articles of Confederation, and they very specifically outlined that the style shall be. Well, style in law is everything. You're not going to have your title with a lowercase letter in the middle of your name. Of course not. So that represents a different entity. It's clear as day. The style shall be.
Because one, they have the right to also have their own system. If they choose a different system to operate for their people, they can develop the style of that system. The question is how does it apply to the people of the state? See, a lot of people think that the 14th Amendment applies to them, and it does not. One, it was never properly ratified according to the Congressional Record of 1967. But does that negate the fact that Congress has the right under their right to use the 14th Amendment? No, it's their creation. If that they have their own citizens, okay, they can call their system whatever they want, because why? Article 1, Section 10. Just like a lot of people talk about how the Act of 1871 is unconstitutional. No, it's not. They have the right to do business just like you do. If they want to name their business lowercase t, so be it. It's just like I didn't know about the Northwest Ordinance for a long time. I only knew about the 13th Amendment until I read a case in 1996 where somebody used it and it's still in force and effect. So if the organic laws are still in place, but you never bring the argument, you can't blame the judge. You got to bring the argument. And don't get me wrong, I used to think this way a lot of times when I first started. When I went through 7 years of that family court case and I wrote my first court paper, it didn't even look like a court paper. It looked like a business letter. And the judge he read it, issued a ruling, and then he said he would not accept any more pro se filings, and I got angry. And then I discovered United States versus Doherty. He doesn't have to. And I said, holy crap. And then I realized there are different ways to come into this court. Impropriety persona, sui juris, pro se, pro per. There's many different ways. Those just four off the top of my head. And trust me, I fought that judge for 7 years to the point where I even went to jail for 45 days. And I discovered later because of what I've learned over the years, I look back and say, you know what? I actually respect the judge more than I did then. But do I like him? Hell no. Damn it. Tell me you got an airbag. Tell me you got an airbag. Exactly. That tire blew out my airbag, or the airbag blew the tire, and I need a mud flap. I'll be right back.
Hey, Jesse, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So I'm looking at 26 U.S. Code for definitions, 7701.
Okay.
Right. So it says United States person. The term United States person means a citizen or resident of the United States, a domestic partnership, a domestic corporation, any estate other than a foreign estate within the meaning of paragraph 31, and any trust if a court within the United States is able to exercise primary supervision over the administration of the trust, and one or more United States persons have the authority to control all substantial decisions of the trust. So would that mean that we got to say so in how our trust is managed by the Treasury of the U.S.?
Well, I mean, if you don't say anything, what do you think is going to happen? Right?
They're going to keep rock and rolling as is.
Silence is acquiescence. So, you know, if you haven't moved into a position to express what you want or how you want it done, then it's going to be presumed that you've left it for them to do on your behalf. Right? So, you know, contact with these people and expressing who you are, making your declaration and letting it be known is very important. Because if not, they're just going to presume, like they always presume, that you are an employee and they don't answer to employees. Right? Everything is about, are you an American with nationality, okay, with a declaration of who you are, or are you just another United States citizen that is immigrated to come here and do work on behalf of the United States government? Right? That's the difference between you having a nationality and declaring who you are in this country versus just being considered to be another employee with a number. Right? Who are you in relation to this number? It's all about you defining who you are, where you stand, right, and what you're doing here. They're under the presumption that you're here just to work and make them money, right? You don't have any nationality. If you fall in the United States citizenship, you literally have no nationality. Okay, and if you have no nationality, they don't have to adhere to the Bill of Rights in regards to any of those things, because you fall completely under their preview, and they have sole jurisdiction, and they can do whatever they want to do, and there's nothing that you can say. And if you're not from this country, and you weren't born here, they'll ship your ass back to wherever you came from. So, you know, you have to figure out who you are in relation to this system. Some people want to be set apart and don't want to be associated with it all. I completely get it, right? I mean, if you want to follow the scripture and being completely in alignment, then you're going to remove yourself from it completely. But until you are in a position to do that, and you have all these things set up so you can make that move, that's not pragmatic for anybody to do. I wasn't born into money, so I can't just go, okay, I'm not going to go to work, or I'm not going to do what I need to do to get something to eat. You know, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And Jack, you can write your own social compact with God. It doesn't have to be with anyone else. You can make your own government with God. And God is the government, meaning that he is the one that you answer to, and that you abide by his rules and his laws that he set forth for you. And that is your government structure. But you still are going to be governed by something, whether it's by man or whether you're self-governing. right? And if you're self-governing, then that means that you answer to a higher power and that you've expressed that. And that's how you walk the walk and talk the talk. So not only do you have to do that with your actions, but you have to perceive yourself on paper to say, hey, this is who I am, because there's nothing on paper to perceive your words, whether it be
Yes, but Jesse, where in the word are we told to do that? Okay, you're talking about establishing this government or structure of functioning on our own.
What we're doing here is setting ourselves apart from them and not leaving any.
But you're going to them to get your permission to operate. That's the problem.
I'm not asking for permission. I don't ask for permission.
But you're doing it through trust, right? So how do you get a trust without their permission? Tell me.
I can create a trust without their permission. I don't need their permission to create a trust.
Okay, well, you want them to acknowledge your trust, though. So you're getting a trust established through their procedures, and their paperwork is what you're filling out to establish it, right? Where does the Most High tell you to do that? Where does Jesus tell you to do that?
Toilet paper, brother. I mean, if somebody else didn't make a piece of toilet paper for you to wipe your butt with, then there would be no toilet paper. Somewhere in there, you're going to have to acknowledge something, whether you like it or not, so you can get through the gate. Okay, I'm not worried about all the other preliminary stuff. I'm trying to get through the gate, because once I'm through the gate, I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. I'm trying to get to the next level. I'm not trying to stay where I'm at. And if I have to do certain things to get there, as long as I stay in honor and I'm not hurting anybody else, then that's what's required for me to do. I mean, to each man their own, and every man must take their own path. So I respect what you're saying, and I respect where you're going with it, and it makes sense, but it's not pragmatic for me to do that.
Yeah, I agree. We're all at different places. We're all on different paths, but we need to come together. We need to be narrowing this down, because narrow is the way. That's what we're told.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Narrow is the path. And I mean, at the end of the day, God says, don't be lukewarm. Either you're on one side of the fence or you're the other. Make up your mind what it's going to be. Because if you come to me lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out. So I completely get what you're saying. I'm just trying to find a workaround to the best that I can without being homeless and underneath the bridge,
Well, but we're told not to worry about those things. We're told to do His will. Okay, so my problem is that everybody that I see in these groups is focused on establishing their estates properly, right? I mean, that's what's going on. That's what everybody's trying to do. They want to establish their standing with the beast, right? We know that a system's coming where no man will buy or sell. Why are we worried about establishing our, qualifications and buying and selling and conducting commerce according to the world? We're told not to. These children have been stolen everywhere. Everybody's children are being taken, and nobody's doing anything about it. They're all worried about paperwork to correct their fucking status. We need to go physically take the kids back. This is a war. It's not just a paper war. It's a physical war.
Jack, when you go to the store, what are you using as a medium of exchange to buy goods and services?
It doesn't matter.
But you're still participating.
You're straining at gnats.
To one shape, form, fashion, or the other, you're still participating in the system because you have.
No. I am simply transferring military script. It's just a note that's used. It doesn't matter whether it just doesn't matter.
I agree with that, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you go to the store and you go to buy goods and services, in order for you to feed your family, what are you using? You're using what you have in order to do it. And until we go back to gold and silver, okay, you're not going to be able to walk into the store and buy those goods with those.
Okay, but we talk about coming out of this system. We're told, we're commanded to be separate from this system, come out from among them, touch not the unclean things. What are the unclean things? All of these instruments that pull us into contract with the state, with the government.
I disagree.
Everybody's got blood on their hands.
I agree with you 100%, but I'm talking about from being pragmatic. What
about this? What about this? Let me ask you this, Jesse. Okay, you know what Jesus said about not giving thought for tomorrow, not worrying about what you're going to eat. That's what you're making a big deal about right now. Not worrying about what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear. He said, don't worry about those things. Why? Because the world worries about those things. We're not to be like that. He tells us He'll provide if we do His will. But one of the things a lot of people don't like to acknowledge is where it says, come out from among them and be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing. What? Then I will receive you. Nobody's doing the first part. They're not coming out and not touching it. They haven't even been received by the Father yet. They think they are. They think they have, but they're still worried about food. The Messiah said not to be.
So tomorrow, if you were to wake up and you had nothing, would you be trying to figure out
Jesse,
how?
I've been living for 7 years with 6 children. We have nothing. He
How'd you feel?
provides for us. I don't have to fret about it.
You had to have something, though. God must have given you something in between in order for you to be able to provide for those children. What was it? Where did it come from?
He opens the doors all the time, just like he says he will. He provides for us with nothing. I can go to sleep with absolutely nothing, no food in the cupboards, and know that my Father will provide for me and my little ones. And he does it. And I can stand on that testimony, and that's a real faith.
No, I believe that, and I know that to be true too, because that's
But
how.
everybody wants to sit and come with the same question at me. Well, how are you going to do it? He tells us that he will do it. It's not about what we're nothing. We ain't shit. He does everything. I don't protect my family. I don't feed my family. He does it all. I'm in him. I focus on him. We've got the wrong way of thinking. We think we need to go out and provide everything and be the providers. Look, things are different. This is the kingdom we're talking about. Christ's kingdom. It's different. It's not of this world.
In the system, I had this realization a long time ago that there's not a lack of anything. God has provided an overabundance of everything, and that this
Everything's
system,
his. That's right. Everything's our Father's.
it's created this system of making us believe that there is a lack of something. So there really isn't a lack of anything. The only thing that we have a lack of is faith. At the
That's
end of
right.
the day, the Father
That's
is not
right.
going to provide. So at the end of the day, man, I don't really concern myself with how I'm going to get money or how I'm going to.
No, but you know that one of the biggest principles that we're to stand upon is you should be caring about your neighbor's rights as much as you care about yours. That's a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, is Christ's
I mean,
kingdom.
isn't that why I'm here? And isn't that why I'm spending this time on this channel? Is to not only educate myself, but to also help my fellow brother to get up out of bondage, because that's what
Well,
we're here.
but every time the kingdom comes to this platform, it gets knocked down, and it's always the same stupid thing. Well, how are you going to eat? You're going to go live in a tent? Why don't you refer to Messiah's words? And then that should stop every man's mouth.
But you also have a rational part of your brain that is going to ask that question. It's going to ask, okay, well, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, what could happen as a result? Now, I get that goes back into not having faith and not putting the faith where it needs to be. Okay, I completely get it. But we all fall into the trap where that little voice in our head says, hey, you're going to have to take care of something yourself, because God helps those who help themselves. So if you're not doing anything to help yourself,
Well, really, that's not in the scriptures either, Jesse. It doesn't say God helps those who help themselves. Quote me the chapter and verse on that one. Because what I see is that he helps those that are helpless and powerless to help themselves.
then why are there so many helpless in the
And man, and see, all the people in these groups, they all think they have some kind of ability, some kind of power that they can manifest within themselves to overcome this system. It is the beast. There is coming a time where no man will buy or sell. So why the fuck are we worried about buying or selling? Why aren't we worried about taking care of each other, protecting each other? Why aren't we worried about setting up ways of growing food and coming together? Because we're also puffed up with our egos, with ourselves.
No matter what, you are in the world. Okay, there's a difference between being a product.
But we're not of it. So what does it mean not being of it?
That's what I'm saying. What to me, what it means is that I am distinguishing or differentiating between me and myself and this entity that they have taught me to be and embody since the day I was 18 years old, or since I went to school, and then creating degrees of separation to where I'm not using that entity in the public world anymore. I create something else that goes out in the world. It's not me. I've separated myself from it. Right? I acknowledge that I'm not it. It is not me, and I'm going to use it in the proper capacity instead of identifying myself as this thing. No matter what you do, you are in the world, and the world operates a certain way. So either you're going to try to figure out a way to operate in that and be separate from it at the same time, or you're going to wind up becoming a product of it. But there really isn't much else in between that you can do, unless you just don't want to. You want to live under a bridge, and you want to make sure that you have a life for your children is going to be difficult for them. right?
See
Because if
there,
you
you
don't
just
put it,
dogged it again. You just dogged the kingdom again. You just said it's not
no,
possible
no, I
because you're not
didn't.
going to be able to provide what you think you need to provide for your children. What do you need to provide for your children, Jesse?
The Bible says if you don't go to work, you're not going to eat. Now, that doesn't mean working for somebody else. That means getting your ass out there in your own field and plowing your own shit and getting to work and making sure that at the end of the day that the things God has provided for you, okay, that you need to put it to work in to make
And
sure
we got
that
to figure all that
everything
out. I take that as I need to be doing the Father's work. I need to be doing the Father's will. And if I'm listening to him, he's going to tell me what to do. And that work could be spending 2 months dealing with somebody that's completely lost. And he's put me there to preach the kingdom to them. That's work.
man. All I can do is
That's
save
work.
myself and lead by example. And either you follow or you're not. All right. I can't save you. You have to save yourself at the end of the day.
You can't save yourself. You're powerless to save yourself. That's my point. You see how your speech is so seasoned with the wrong words, the wrong way of thinking. And this is the leaven. A little leaven leavens the whole bunch. And we've got men that are still pursuing mammon every day.
Why do
They're
you want to argue all the time, Jack? Why do you continue to argue with people? We're here to get along.
Well, I suppose
I
it
think
depends
just
on what your definition of arguing is.
Well,
There's
I don't
nothing wrong with arguing for
okay.
the truth.
Okay,
It's called
so
contending.
we're
It's a
done
healthy
with that.
debate.
I think maybe you're just
Jesse,
an overly sensitive woman.
No, stop,
Jesse,
Jack.
Wow,
Let's not
Jack.
agitate
Jesse,
them. Yes,
are
I'm
you the
listening.
one
Go
that
ahead.
explained the beneficiary thing of the trust? Is that you? Was
Yeah.
that you?
Yes.
Okay, so when you said we're something about the beneficiary versus the beneficiary. So the beneficiary, you mean the beneficiary of the master trust that all
That's
the
correct.
our little trusts are under?
Yes, there's one big trust called the Public Constructive Trust, and then there is
Okay.
a trust created for everyone that's underneath that. It's called a Sister KV trust, and every single one of us
Okay.
have one.
So then
Right?
how is it that we cannot be the beneficiary of our little trust, but not the beneficiary of the big master trust? Like, why
Okay,
can't it be like that?
well, technically speaking, if you knew who you really were, then you would know you are the beneficiary of the big trust because your father's father set that up for you. At least my father's father did. Starting back in 1933, they pledged everything that they had, their homes, their gold, to this national debt. And as a remedy, the bankers came in and said, okay, at the end of the 70-year moratorium of the bankruptcy, we're going to allow the beneficiaries to come in and claim the hereditaments that their fathers had worked for. But most people don't know that that's in place because they have no idea what the New Deal actually, that's correct, the deal put in place. So right now, you're just working for the system, okay? And you get entitlements as working for the system called benefits and privileges. So yes, you can be a beneficiary over those benefits and privileges on the public side. But if you step into the hereditament of the private trust that they set up in 1933, then you will never have those beneficiary type rights. You will be a beneficiary, not the beneficiary. Understand? A beneficiary,
not
a
really.
beneficiary is getting benefits and privileges from the public trust. The beneficiary is getting the beneficiary rights and entitlements and hereditaments from the master trust. There's a difference between the two.
But why does it matter that you have to be the beneficiary of the master trust versus the little trust?
Well, it doesn't matter
Underneath.
unless you want to become the beneficiary. I mean, do you want to continue to work for the system and get their entitlements at the end of it for all the hard work you do for them, or do you
But why
want to
can't you be? But I mean, isn't them dividing each of our trusts under the master trust? Isn't doesn't why can't you get the rights of beneficiary the same way under the little trust as if you were under the master trust?
Because you're an employee. You're not a beneficiary. Right? You're an employee. An employee doesn't get beneficiary rights and entitlements or hereditaments from master trust. He only
So
gets.
wait, so you're saying the little trust automatically makes us employees?
Yes, that's what the public constructive trust is. It is an agreement that they're going to run your estate for you because you haven't reached the age of majority, okay? And until you've proven that you have, you're going to continue to be a worker bee, and you're going to everything that you do is going to be the benefit for the social construct or the social compact, which is the public constructive trust. It's a social agreement that they would be the conservators and that they would run the estates until you reach the age of
But
majority.
I think this is not yet answering like why does that make it so we can't put then as a beneficiary of the little trust, we can't put a first lien on it.
How are you going to lien something that you haven't proven that you even have an hereditary right to? You have to prove.
But you just said that we are the those little trusts are made for us.
In theory, yes. Okay. In practical application, yes. But in this system, everything works upon a presumption. So until you can rebut the presumption with proof, the presumption is going to stand. So it's incumbent upon you to prove your claim. So when you can prove your claim, then you can move into that position.
Because you have to clear out the one trust so you can move it to the other trust. But you've got to do the work in order to do it.
What do you
It's
mean you
not
have to
just
clear
given.
out one trust in order to move it to the other trust?
You have to do your 1099s. You have to do your due diligence in moving out your credit side and zeroing that out and knowing what you're doing.
The claim, when you make the correct claim and you move into the beneficiary position, all your debts to society are going to be paid off. Those books are going to be balanced. So, you can try to do all those things on the public side, or you can realize, move to the private side, and then those books will be balanced, and then you are no longer privy to them.
So it's a matter of moving the credits from the public to your private trust?
No, you're not moving anything. You're just moving your status, your declaration of who and what you are from one jurisdiction to another, and then laying the claim of who you are and stepping into the beneficiary role.
Okay, so then you're saying you can be beneficiaries of the trust.
You can be the beneficiary, or you can be a beneficiary. The beneficiary.
I don't know.
The difference is a beneficiary is someone who works for the federal government and receives benefit and privileges at the end of their tenure. Okay, the beneficiary is someone who steps into the role of the hereditary that their father's father set up for them way back in the day with a trust.
And where did you learn this?
I learned this by listening and reading and researching.
Okay, what did you read that told you this?
Well, if you go back to the New Deal and HJR 192, House Joint Resolution, it tells you what they did. And then if you go look at the New Deal and you see the New Deal and how they set it up and what they were trying to accomplish, it vaguely tells you there. You have to get bits and pieces of information and put the pieces of the puzzle together, because everything is so sprawled out that you're going to have to search everywhere far and wide and to actually find the truth.
So isn't this contradicting what Pastor says, that we're not the beneficiaries, we're just the agents of the trust?
Well, no. Once again, what position have you declared in regards to the trust? It's all about a declaration. If you say you're the authorized agent, then by all means take on that role. Okay? But when you graduate from being the authorized agent and you've reached the age of majority, then you can move into the beneficiary role. An agent can be a trustee, a beneficiary, can be an executor. It can be any position that is being held within inside of the trust. Decide on which agent you want to be, and then that's the pursuit. That's the agency that you're going to pursue. I don't want to be the trustee. I don't want to be responsible for the paperwork anymore. I want to move into the beneficiary role and be done with that nonsense.
But see, what gives you the right to put yourself in the beneficiary position? Isn't that what Pastor said? Like, if we didn't create the trust, how can we do that?
Yeah, it's not ours.
I was born, listen, you are entitled to your hereditary and your birthright. Okay, your birthright is your
From man?
You are. No, before God. Go and look at this guy who made his own declaration. He sent a notice from the House, and then he put the next document he had was his claim to the heirship, and then he had his quorum before God, and he brought his 2 witnesses, and then he had his last will and not his last will and testament, his will and testament. Okay, and then he filed it on the land record. He made a declaration of who he was, where he stood, and what he was all about. That's the problem, is that none of us have done that. We're all under the
Okay, who's this guy? Who's this guy you're referring to who did this?
Hang on, I'll post it in the chat so you can look at it for yourself.
And you're talking about a trust that he established or something, or what?
Well, yes, everything is based upon a trust. What he did was he reconveyed the title to the property, the land title, from one jurisdiction to the other. At birth, the government came in between you and your hereditament and your birthright. If you look on the back of the certificate of birth, they use an English, it comes out of an English hereditament book that talks about the herediments and how they're passed down from father to son. And in the book, it gives an example of why they use the footprints to come in between the hereditament, so that until you reach the age of majority, there was some type of supervision or supervisor there to oversee these things and manage these affairs on your behalf. And until you can come back in and say, hey, I'm the age of majority, here's my claim, and here's the paperwork to prove it, along with all of your actions, words, and deeds, okay, to complement those things, you're not going to be allowed in through the door. You have to prove who you are. You can't just say who you are, because that's just a presumption, and we need to see some paperwork. We need to know where you stand, who you are. It's thought, word, and deed, okay? So the thoughts in your mind and the words that come out of your mouth and the deeds that you put on paper.
Okay, well, what I would bring in reference to that is when Messiah is talking to the apostles, and he tells them that they're going to be brought before magistrates, rulers and magistrates, to make an open show of them, and for them not to even give thought for what they're going to say. That contrasts what you're saying.
All right, so let's look. I put it in the chat, okay? So everybody can open this up. I did a video on it the other day. There was about an hour where we spoke about this, and I gave this to everyone that was on the channel, and we all looked at it and went over it.
See, this is what makes us confused, because what you're saying is, it seems like some of the things contradict what Pastor was saying, and it's like, so what is the right thing? It's hard to tell.
The difference between Pastor and I is Pastor wants to operate in a public capacity, and he's using those laws that govern over them to keep them in check. I'm trying to get out of the public and move into the private. He's not ready to completely move into the private. Okay, so two different aspects here. I'm trying to get out of this, and he's trying to still operate in.
Yeah. So, so I don't like it when people insinuate that I'm not willing to do the work, that I'm not reading this, not looking at that. What I'm trying to do is get down to the bottom of what is the truth, and then go that way, because I've already spent so much time on these, chats, on these podcasts or whatever, the streams and the reading stuff, this and that. And, I don't want to be just reading whatever and then later on find out that's not the truth. So I'm trying to get at, trying to understand what it is first I need to study, and then go studying. I am far from lazy. So, I mean, I'm willing to do the reading, but I just don't want to start reading something that may not be the right thing to read. You know what I mean? And look at me. I'm already so confused because of all these people that, I've been listening to who are contradicting each other or saying different things from each other. So it's, I'm still struggling to find out what really is the truth.
Well, the truth be told, you're probably never going to really discover the truth until you stand in front of God himself when he reveals it to you.
Hey, Jesse, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Hang on just 1 second. You need to pray for discernment. And you need to ask God.
Well, yes. I mean, I think I've had pretty good discernment so far. But
I'm not asking you for your discernment. I'm asking for God to give you discernment. There's a difference between your discernment and his discernment. All right. God, you're only going to go down more rabbit holes by trying to use your own discernment. You have to pray to God to give you wisdom, okay, and to put you on the right path and give you the ability to discern between what is of God and what is not of God. And then,
You know what makes me question is that we're basing everything on the Bible and on Christianity, right? And we don't even know which part of the Bible is true, and if the Bible hasn't been tampered with, the part that we're understanding hasn't been tampered with over the centuries or whatever, right? So, but the thing is, like, what about the people that don't believe in that aren't even exposed to Christianity or the Bible? Like, do they, are they just going to, not have access to, being able to defend their rights like we do, or if we, get to figure it out, that just, it makes me concerned, especially because I am I am the child of people that don't even speak English. It's like, how is the message going to get to them?
Well, the Father testifies to all men through creation. The heavens testify to him. They go on and on and on. It's not blind faith, and it's not relying upon one translation over another translation. We can look at them all, and we've got lots of confirming testimony.
I don't know. I just feel like, what about the people who either don't have the exposure, that don't even know this exists, or don't have the time, because they're just trying to survive, right? And that, if they don't, it almost seems like you need to study this like a PhD course or something, right? And you need, so it's like, if you don't either don't have that, or if you're not exposed to even know that it's there, how is it fair for those people not to sort of, get their freedom versus us who have the access and who have the time?
Susan,
Everybody has the opportunity.
Have you read the Declaration of Independence? Have you read the preamble to the Constitution?
I mean, I did at school,
Sounds like you need to go read Romans 1.
You need to read it again, okay? Because it doesn't say, this is where people are having this discrepancy here. The word God is not a name of the Most High, okay? The word God is a title, and that title can be applied to anything that you believe in regards to a higher power, whether you call him Buddha, you call him Krishna, you call him Yahweh, whether you call him, it doesn't matter. The whole premise is that you believe in a higher power, and that's where your rights come from. They don't come from the institutions of men. They come from your higher power and your personal relationship with whatever creator that you have a relationship with. So
no, they come from us entering into a contract, a trust agreement with Messiah. He is our surety for all things. See, this is where everything's getting confused, is you guys are trying to use the name of Messiah to teach some sort of method that's not according to the kingdom.
It's about the principle that's being expressed. It's not about who you are claiming to be the Messiah.
It's about the kingdom. It's about it being here within you, it being here and now and doing it. We have a king, we have a law, we have a kingdom. So why are we trying to create something other than that?
This is the caption.
So my question for you, Jesse, was how many kingdoms are in this world? How many kingdoms exist?
There are two kingdoms. There's the kingdom of heaven and there's the kingdom of the world.
Can you show me anywhere where the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven as you referred to it, is in subjection to the kingdoms of men?
Only in your heart.
Okay.
So how does this apply to everyday life?
Hang on, I want to go back to what I posted here. Does everybody see it where it says claim originals?
Well, in every way, the ways of the kingdom speak about how we treat our neighbor and how we interact in a society of the people, by the people, and for the people under Christ. That's what this is all about, is doing things differently, not of the world. We're not taking care of each other. We're not providing for the welfare of those. All anybody is thinking about is themselves. That's the problem.
Look, everybody click
Jesse,
on
the land findings?
Yes, click on the document that I put in the chat here, okay? Open it up. Let me show you what this gentleman here did, okay? What he did was, that's the wrong one, damn it. Is that the right one? Okay, yes, I've opened the right one. This guy made a declaration of status of who he is in regards to his creator and where he's standing out on the ground. He gives a public notice from the house, okay, from the house of Whitenhop, All right, down here he declares himself as the Lord of the house, meaning he's the executor. On the second page, he comes in and he makes a claim. He says, I'm the heir, and here's my notice of claim. Okay, and down here at the bottom, it says, as claimant. Okay, this is the position that the hat that he's wearing. He's the claimant in the heir. Okay, underneath that is his will and testament. Okay, and then there's another one underneath that where it's a quorum of the board. Quorum is a minute of the meetings. It's a trust expression. He's taking his two witnesses and going before a notary, okay, before God to make his claim. He's saying that I am a child of the Most High, blah, 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 and then backs it up by the scripture here. Underneath that is his hereditament documents, the certificate of birth from the hospital, the real birth certificate. Underneath that is his hereditament documents. You see those little footprints? That's the thing between you and your birthright that I was talking about from the English hereditament book. That allowed the government to come in and to break the chain of title here to the land record, which is property, which is you, okay, to take control over the estate and be the conservator on behalf of. Okay, so these two documents here are part of the hereditament for you to make your claim, okay, to declare who you are. Underneath that is the authenticated birth certificate from the federal government and from the state, certifying that you are the beneficiary heir and that are stepping into the position. On the back, he makes an equitable claim by real stones on the back, silver, to bring it into equity. He gets the postmaster to stamp it, okay, because the postmaster general is the transmitting utility between the public and the private. All right, and then he sends this off, and on the back, at the very end, he puts ab initio, animande, non prompto, from the start to the end, forevermore. Okay, and what he's doing is he's asking forgiveness, basically saying from the Lord's Prayer, that I forgive those who've trespassed upon me so that my trespasses may be forgiven. He acknowledges it, he redeems it, he claims it, and he surrenders it back to Caesar. And then he sends it in to him, and he files it on the land record. Boom, this is part of becoming the aged majority right here and claiming your herediments that were given, because when they set up the New Deal, they had to give a remedy for everybody at the end of the bankruptcy to come in and to claim their estates that were set up by their father's father, who went and did all that work and put in all that time and effort to pay back these debts. And that's what these documents are for. So if you want to be considered an American with nationality, then you need to declare what your nationality is. I'm from Texas, from the Republic of Texas. I am a Texian. Okay, Texin, under the Republic of Texas from 1839 from 1836 to 1839. All right, so I'm under that, the original republic for the United States of America, protected by that Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and then the Bill of Rights that goes along with in the original Texas Constitution from 1839. So it's about who you are, where you stand, and your relation to everything around you. This is
I'm interested in this stuff being tested and how it works when it's tested, you know?
The people who've done this aren't going to tell you how they did it. And they're, like Pastor said.
Well, who's done it?
There's lots of people who've done it. But they're not going to tell you who've done it. It's
Why
private.
would they not tell us?
Because it's private. It's not
What's
public
private?
information.
Well, then how are we supposed to know if it works or not if no one who did it is going to speak up? Isn't that cowardly, kind of? Isn't that in the spirit of not helping their fellow man by not talking about it?
How are you going to get any information in life if you don't do your own research and do your own due diligence?
No, you can learn. You can learn.
Now,
But how do you know the stuff is true? How do you know?
It's a personal thing.
Whatever.
How do you know that?
Usually people want proof that something works, before they do it.
Well, you know what? You're not going to get proof of something that was done in the private and the public, because that's the difference between public and private. So if you keep asking for proof in the public, you're not going to get it. You're going to have to find somebody who's done this, and they're going to have to be willing to share that information with you, or you're going to have to do your own.
These documents are as private as they get.
This is on the
That you're
public
doing.
So,
land record.
so what
You
I'm
can have
saying is my attitude is different than yours. I'm not willing to go on blind trust. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not open to this. I'm still,
you're already under blind
willing
trust.
to explore things. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be so much better if we could see that it actually holds up if it's tested,
Then you know what? Then go out and
This,
do your own scientific method and test it. You want to determine
Okay,
whether
so
that is
we
found
it always
fact,
goes back to we have to be our own guinea pigs and
right.
risk going to jail or whatever, to see if something works, right? I
Hey,
feel
if
like
you're
that's
not,
really not an efficient system.
hey, guess what? If you're not willing to put your own ass on the line, then you have no business being in this game.
Whatever. That's what people say who just teach theories and like don't have anything to back it up.
How do you think I got this information? How do you think I learned what I learned? Because I was willing to put my ass on the line and go to jail for it. I was willing to stand in my square and not accept their offer. Okay? If you're not willing to
How,
walk the walk and talk
on
the
what,
talk,
and how you're willing to go to jail for something, if it's worth it, not based on some like, thing that's not even, there's no proof of. There's a smart risk and there's a dumb risk.
proof, then go out and search and find your proof. Quit asking me to give it to you. Go out and have your own experience and use the scientific method to determine whether or not something is real or not, so that you have firsthand knowledge. Quit asking me for my firsthand knowledge, because you're just
Done
going to
this,
keep
right?
asking me questions about it.
You say
Well,
people have done this
it's
and
public
it's
notice, right?
been
Like it says on the top, public notice. So you're filing it in the public, or
Filing it on the land record. The land record is the liaison between the public world and the private world. Common law everything started at the Postmaster General's office. So that is to go in between you and the common law.
I'm just saying, because like when people make out a will or like a will and testament, they don't like file that in the public. They keep that in their own private records, right?
Last will and testament is different than the will and testament. A will and testament is a living proclamation. The last will and testament is something that you do when you're going to die and somebody else is going to take over on behalf of your estate.
Isn't the trustee responsible for all costs and expenses of the trust and its property?
Yeah, if you're playing the trustee role, but why would you want to be the
Well, I
trustee?
mean, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the trust, as in Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury.
They are protecting the trust. They are doing their trustee job. Their job is to protect the principal, which is that number in the background that you're not supposed to know about. It's
The number on the back of the socials.
Yeah, well, man, I think that number is just more of a routing number. Like, kind of like, how there's a bank account number and there's a routing number. I think that's more so what that number is. The bank
Well,
account
the
number
thing
is
is, if
and the other
the
number is the routing number.
trustee's in charge of everything, then we shouldn't have to pay for anything, technically.
Once again, who are you in relation to the trust? And can you prove who you say you are? Have you filed your own public notice with your own hereditament documents and everything in place, making your declaration of who you are? Or are you working on a presumption that you know who you are in regards to the trust, in regards to the the way that the government sees you, right? It's not only about how you view yourself, but it's also how everyone else around you views you, right? That makes up the totality of what we're talking about here. So if you're working on one presumption and they're working on another, and then you meet somewhere in the middle and you're trying to rectify the situation, well, it seems to me that there's ambiguity here. You're saying that you're one thing on paper, but the words that are coming out of your mouth are saying something different. Are you double-minded? Who are you? What are you talking about? You have to know who you are in relation to what you're doing. Not think you know who you are, but know who you are, and then act accordingly. And if you You know, if what you put on a piece of paper doesn't precede your words and your actions, well, they're going to consider you to be double-minded, and they're going to think that you're in a childlike mindset. They're going to come in and of course, they're going to run things for you. Of course, they're going to be the conservator. Of course, they're going to hold you liable for everything because you're playing the role, man. You got to learn what role you're playing. Quit playing it. Who are you? Are you the trustee? Are you the agent? Are you the beneficiary? Are you a worker bee? You know, who are you? Because it looks like on paper here, and every time you sign, that you have obligated and volunteered to be our slave. And you haven't said otherwise.
I'm a peculiar person, a citizen of another kingdom, not a citizen of this world.
Okay.
Why would I care, or why would I ask, or why would I choose for the courts to deem whether I'm competent or not? I could care less what they think.
What do you
Actually, what we know is that the wisdom of God is foolishness to this world. So we want these foolish judges to decide whether we're competent or not. How about we not send them any paperwork so they can't use it against us? We know that everything that we say or do with them will be used against us.
How about you have declared that you are competent before you ever go there so that you don't have to go there? How about taking some accountability and responsibility for yourself before you ever get there? So
I agree.
You don't find yourself in that situation. And that's what this is all about. This is about you taking responsibility and showing that you are capable of being mature in the age of majority so that they don't have to come in and do it for you. That's what this is all about.
But what I'm saying is the kingdom principles do not fit within all of these documents that you guys want to try to make them fit into. And you guys are using the scriptures to push something like so many do that's not coming from the scriptures. It's just like to talk about equity. Okay, equity in man's law is not the same as equity in God's law. There's difference. Just like trust in God's law is not the same as trust in man's law.
I don't know if it's all about, them waiting for us to
like. Know a lot of things, so you're just babbling and asking questions to distract. Jesse and I we're trying to share here knowledge that we both have. Jesse has knowledge; he's got experience. Doesn't sound like you do. I've got knowledge. I've got experience. So if you want to,
what's your problem, Jack? You're the one that's the most distracting.
My problem is contentious women.
I was going to address something Jesse just said, okay, is that it's all about them waiting for us to declare whatever age of majority, whatnot. But I think it's about them wanting total control over society. Isn't it? Like, why would...
It's about both. The question is, are you going to be part of that society? Are you still bitter and angry about what's going on in the society, or are you going to separate yourself? Right? Everybody in this game is pissed off about the way the government is treating them when they don't realize that they've given them permission to do it. So when you're tired of giving them permission
I get that.
you're going to do something about it.
Yes, I get that there's something that I have to do to separate or get out of this matrix or the system or whatever, right? So the whole, question is, what is the correct way or whatever? What is the way that's not going to end up giving me, more trouble and exposing me to trouble that I didn't anticipate or whatever. So
I don't have the answer to those questions. This is your
No,
journey.
I'm not asking you to. I'm not asking you to.
What I'm saying, Susan, is that this is your journey. This is your process. You're going to have to figure out how, just like everyone
I
else,
get that. You don't have to make a speech on it. I get it. I think you're making a lot of assumptions when I'm talking. Sometimes I just want to ask something and I'm not.
I can't give you to. You want answers to questions I can't give you to because I don't know.
I didn't ask you for an answer for that.
You want answers to a whole bunch of stuff.
All I asked was, do you know anyone that went through that, whatever that guy that you said you posted that guy did, right? That process. Yes. So that's all I wanted to know. And if it held up for them, like if, it got tested and held up and then you said some things basically saying that you don't really know, right?
I don't know everything. No man knows
and I think that's a very reasonable question that I asked. I don't think I was asking for, I think you're, carrying it further, extrapolating too much from it and thinking that I'm asking this, and that. No, I was just asking do you know of people that, use this and it held up, in some kind of situation, you know?
There are people who have done these things, but like I was saying earlier, they're only going to give you certain information that may lead you on the right path, and you're going to have to go and figure it out for yourself because they have signed agreements not to give out that information.
Yeah, that part feels wrong. You know, that they have to sign agreements not to give out information. That doesn't feel right.
Susan, what do you
That's
bring
how they
out?
keep us all as
I don't
slaves.
care if it's wrong or right. It is what it is. Okay, I don't make the rules for anything. Either I'm going to follow the rules and I'm going to go along to get along, or I'm going to create my own society and create my own rules. And then I'm not going to be subject to any of that. So somewhere in there, you're going to have to play ball. Okay, and if they're going to give you $5 million a year to keep your mouth shut, are you going to keep your mouth shut? Or are you going to run around telling everybody? That's my point. You know, so
I don't know. I mean, yeah. That does not feel like it's a thing from God, or that's something that you should do. You know.
The goal
But that's just my opinion.
is to keep us enslaved, keep us dumb and ignorant. It's just to keep us dumb and ignorant and a slave to the system. That's why it's so hard finding truth anywhere pertaining to anything.
Yeah. And you find a lot of not truth. You find a lot of people posing to give the truth, but then they're not giving the total truth. Like Yusef L.
There's like all these people that I run across that have information. You know, they got methods that work like verbatim, but they want you to pay for access to the information. They're all like, hey, kind of a subscription. Yeah, I'll tell you how to
so
do
you
it.
have to wonder. Yeah. So you have to wonder, like, those people that are constantly, you know, wanting money from you, it's like, do they really know the truth? Do they really know how to do things? Right?
You always just got to keep asking questions, reading and learning. I mean, that's what I've been doing. I've been asking questions and I just keep reading.
Yep. It's definitely a journey.
I know for me, when I find out what works, I'm telling everybody.
It's in the red letters, people. And it's free.
Guys, think about this. If everybody knew how to do this process, okay, and everybody did it, the government would collapse and society would cease to be. This is a matter of national security. So of course, when you learn the secret and you do everything and they're willing to give you $5 million, they're going to have you sign an NDA because it's a matter of national security. So if you don't want the money, then you wouldn't sign the NDA. And I know there are people in the game who have done the process and denied the money because they still wanted to be able to teach the process. Okay, but if you want to move into the private, then you want to have those hereditaments and get those, become the beneficiary and get those things, you are going to have to keep your mouth shut, or they're going to take those things away from you, or you're going to wind up disappearing. Now, whether that's wrong or right, hey, that's not for me to decide. My decision is on whether I'm going to move in that direction or I'm not going to move in that direction.
So who are these people that have not taken the money?
No, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to start searching through the community and find people. There's lots of people. They're on all the time, and I'm not at liberty to tell you who they are. But they're always on, and they're in the chat rooms, and if you listen astutely enough, you'll hear the people, and you'll realize who it is and who's not, because they say it all the time. They just say it in a way that, unless you really know what you heard, you wouldn't catch on. There are lots of people who have, man, believe me. This has been going on since we came out of the bankruptcy 10 years ago. When the bankruptcy lifted, a lot of people started moving in and claiming those, cashing in their bonds and moving into the beneficiary position. Why do you think the government is so adamant about the new system being put in place and people taking those vaccines? Because they need to kill off people or take control of their securities so that they can use that for the new monetary system that they're trying to put in place. Right? The government knows. That's why there are so many people out there and so many different processes, because their goal is to keep you going down this rabbit hole so that you'll never discover the truth. All right, trying to fix all this debt in the public when never knowing that all they have to do is this process, and then all of their debt in the public is wiped away and everything is reset, and then you get to go on with your life. Right? You're not worried about all those things that tie you to the world because you get to move away from it. That they don't want that. Then they wouldn't have anybody there to go to work and pay the bills. They would be obligated to pay the bills and go to work. All right? And believe me, the plantation owners do not want that. They want you to go to work and pay those bills.
That's why the World Economic Forum says you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Well, and people seeking these processes seem to think that they'll be exempt from what their neighbor is going to have to go through, or they think that they're going to be able to live peaceably while they sit there in their, their privatized, secured person while their neighbor is being assaulted. That's not the kingdom.
It also says in Revelations, maybe 18, I believe.
There's no man will buy or sell, free or bond.
Free or bond. That's right. It says either or. Right. But you know what? I would rather try to get out of bondage, than stay in bondage. So, if you choose
It's not in bondage. It's not in bondage to quit participating in the systems of the world. It's not bondage to pull out from that and practice Messiah's words. It's not, and that's what you're calling it.
But it's not practical. It's not pragmatic. I don't give a damn what you say. It's not pragmatic. And I'm not going to live in squalor, and I'm not going to let my children go without, and I'm not going to not pay my bills.
Jack, why don't you explain to us how to live without?
And you would have to be serving an impotent, powerless God for that to be the case. Because I've been doing it, I already told you, almost a decade, and I know others that have for longer than I. And you're saying that it's not doable. That makes no sense, man. You're not listening. You're talking about due diligence and researching and studying things. How about listen to people's testimony?
I'm not living in squalor, Jack. I'm not living under a bridge. I'm not going to go without eating.
Then you're not walking on the water, and you're not following Messiah, and you're seeking a kingdom of your own which doesn't exist, and it's another fiction.
It's not real. You're living in a fantasy world. That's
Your
why
trust is a fiction. Your trust is a fantasy world, because when the chips are called in, when Caesar calls in the chips, it doesn't matter that you have some status or piece of paper. They'll just grab your piece of paper and they'll wad it up and they'll throw it on the ground and they'll do what they're going to do to you, Jesse. If you don't have the Father's mark upon you, if you've got the world's mark upon you, you will have no protection.
During World War II, the Nazis went door to door and they asked for the papers. And if your papers reflected a certain thing, they went to the next door. But if your papers didn't, they took you away. So trying to say that
Yeah,
your
you bank
papers
on that.
did not matter is wrong. Okay, because the papers did matter when they were doing exactly what you're talking about. You know, who you are
You
in
acknowledge there
relation
were two kingdoms.
does
You have to acknowledge that there's two marks. There's a mark of the world, there's a mark of the beast, and there's a mark of God. If you're not concerned with the mark of God being upon you, and that has nothing to do with some trust that you file with the government.
don't
If you don't
follow
have spiritual protection from the Most High, you will
pretty
not
much
survive
listen
what's
to
coming,
you and
period.
God.
And that's not going to come from more contracting with the world.
You're missing, bro. You're creating a trust between you and God. And then you're getting the government to acknowledge that trust between you and God.
And you
That's
think they acknowledge that. You think they honor
yes.
that. You got to be
Yes, they
kidding me,
do.
Jesse.
Absolutely they do.
So
Absolutely.
are they
Because
giving people's children back? Because that would be the true litmus test if they're honoring these trusts.
did you hand
Okay,
your
I've heard
children
people
over?
doing
Did
the
you hand your
live life
children
claims.
over?
Jesse, I've
So,
studied it, man, and I've seen people do everything, every little method, and yet they still can't get their children back from the beast.
did you hand your children over to the beast when they were born?
My younger ones, yeah, I did. The older ones,
Okay.
no. It
So
doesn't
whose
matter, dude.
fault?
They take, dude. They don't care if there's papers. They will create papers. If you don't do it, they will do it.
Then you take responsibility for what you did, and then now you need to correct it. You need to make the correction, and you need to set what's wrong right. Okay, that's pretty much where you're at with that. That's why they've taken your children, is because you handed it over to them. Well, you should have never done that in the first place. But now you didn't know that. So hindsight's 20/20. So what are you going to do about it?
Well, Jesse,
Okay.
you have no idea why they took one of my children. I have 6 of my children here, and another 2 in a couple months. They did take them in the initial. And what did I have to do? I had to follow my father's instructions to go and get them back. And you know what? They were flying helicopters and planes around before I went there and got them, and I got them. And the fathers provided for us and protected for us ever since. Over 2 years, we've been through some incredible situations. I was in a motorhome on the highway with my children, Jesse, and we were surrounded in police vehicles. All right? You want to be there? Can you imagine? Probably not. Okay? They were looking for my children.
I've been there.
And we sat there on the side of the highway for 2 hours, and the father made them let us go. We left. Now, is that what was the word you used earlier? Started with a P. Reasonable. It's walking on the water. If you ain't going to walk on the water, you ain't going to get it, man. And it's not easy walking on the water. Look at Peter. He walked on the water and then he started to sink. Everybody's looking for this piece of paperwork, this golden ticket. And it's a distraction. It's a distraction from the true kingdom, which is here, it's now, it's within you. And it's what you do with your hand, and it's what you think in your mind. According to the Father's will, according to his way. His sheep know his voice. That's what he says.
It also says that you will pretty much damn yourself by your own hand. So, it's talking about what you write on a piece of paper. It's talking about what you've contractually obligated yourself and put yourself in. So control what you do. Control what you sign.
I agree.
Control what you decide to participate in. Control what you decide to, subject yourself to, what you listen to, what you eat, what you think, who you hang around with. All those things are relevant. All right.
Okay, so I told you when I talked to you the other day that we had come out of the system. We quit participating. I got rid of all the identification documents, everything. We went about on like that for 6 years. How did we eat? How did we not have a bank account? It was easy. It's no big deal. You learn to do things differently. And
the question I have for you though is I know what you've done, and I get that you're making your declaration and your status by your deeds and your words. Okay.
No, I did do a good faith notice. I sent you the video.
So you sent them some type of notice in regards to who you are.
Public notice to all authorities, all legal officials.
But my question is, are you on the land or are you at sea making your declaration? Because there's
the earth is my Father's and the fullness thereof. Okay. Jesse, I'm not looking to do things their way. I'm not looking to send them paperwork that even looks like theirs. I don't use signatures.
They're never going to recognize you in that capacity. They're never going to.
And where in the scriptures am I commanded to make them recognize me as a living man. We know they don't recognize living men and women.
Now we need fictions to recognize us, huh?
Maybe you're saying what you're saying is correct. Okay, but the point I'm making to you is that the land record is a record of real events. Doesn't deal with fiction. It doesn't deal with presumptions. It establishes a legitimate record so that everybody can be recognized. Just like when you write your verse in the Bible and things of that nature, it's on the same standing as that.
My legitimate record, it's in the heavens, Jesse. Okay, I mean, I get it, but you've also got to realize that for how many generations do people not even know how to read and write?
You're on Earth. You're on a piece of rock. Okay, so either you're metaphorically out at sea or you are on the rock. Where are you in relation to where you're at, man?
I'm on the rock of Christ.
Well, then
That's
you
it.
need to make that declaration, and then you need to let it be known. Okay, you need to set your Plymouth Rock and let it known that it's there. If not, then they're just going to presume that you're just like everybody else.
And what I'm telling you is there's no form or piece of paperwork you're going to be able to fill out that they're going to accept that declaration.
You create your own documents. You don't have to.
You know what else I have? You know what else I have that I can exercise is I've got a godly right of avoidance. I can avoid them at all costs and allow my Father to protect me. And I can go on and on and on and on and on and give you examples of how he does. I've got 3 warrants for my arrest right now. I was at the gas station right next to a trooper the other day. It doesn't matter. The Father will protect me. And if he brings me before them, he's going to make an open show of them.
Exactly. If
I'm going to speak the truth.
Spoke creation into existence, how's a piece of paper going to save you?
Exactly. I mean, I'm all about making a declaration of who you are. Like I said, we had come out from the system 6 years. We lived in a remote area and we were able to do subsistence fishing and hunting and harvesting and gathering. We had goats and we raised goats for milk and stuff, but I never made any declaration to the system. And I don't know that I think I should have. I mean, I didn't want to be put on their radar, right? But, they eventually got involved in our life because of neighbors, because people don't like it when you don't do things the way the world does things. You can't escape it. We will be persecuted. We'll be hated by the world. And these people teaching this whole whatever method, it's ultimately preaching success and posterity. I mean, you're going to be able to function in the private and do whatever you want to do, have everything you want to have while your neighbor suffers because they're in the public. No, don't tell them you can't speak. You've been paid off. Where is any of this biblical, man? It's not. This is a spiritual battle. And everybody's looking for some physical people or piece of paper to solve their problems for them. These courts are wicked, wicked places. And so are all the people that are running it. Why would I go in there and say, Your Honor? I should post the audio of when I went into the court a couple months ago. She was so upset that I wouldn't say Your Honor. I referred to her by her first name as a living woman because that's who I'm talking to. She demanded that I refer to her as Your Honor. And I scolded her and she shut her mouth like a little child. She knows I'm not doing anything to stop the fraud that they're committing against us. But it goes back to consent. They got my oldest daughter involved through coercion, and she's a 14-year-old girl, and she was in rebellion. And I've got family. My family's against me and the way we've lived, but for the past decade. That's what Jesus said. He said, "Don't think I came to bring peace." Well, what are we teaching if we think we can go and just get a trust and we're going to have peace with the government? Come on. He said, "You're not going to have peace. You're going to have trouble and tribulation in this world." Let's go to the 7 churches in Revelations. Okay, what's the one church that didn't receive any rebuke from Messiah? The church that he said was poverty-stricken. See, everybody's teaching that being poor is a sin. It's something wrong. Look at Sodom and Gomorrah. It wasn't that everybody was a fag running around being a queer. It was that they had no hospitality, and the things, the horrific things they did to the people, the travelers and their neighbors that came into their city. It's in your mind. It's in your heart. Like I said, how can you have anything if your neighbor's suffering? I've talked to preppers about this too. How can you go and prep your refrigerator and your pantry and you think you're just going to take care of yourself? I live in Alaska. I live in the bush. I know how people think up here. They think they're set. They buy a piece of property, they get their solar panels. They're living the dream. They live right next. I lived a mile from the Copper River. I could go down and get Copper River Reds whenever I wanted to. But that's not the security that I need, and neither is some piece of paper or some acknowledgement from the state. This is real, and it's got to get real with all of us, and we need each other. If we don't have each other, then we're really losing, because we're told to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, especially as we see the day approaching, as the manner of some is. And like I said to you earlier, we're told to come out from among them, touch not the unclean thing, be ye separate, and then he receives us. Everybody's skipping the first part. Don't fucking touch this shit anymore. Get out of it. Yes, we've contracted into it. Yes, we should try to undo those contracts in whatever way we can. But to run endless circles and to be kept in a state of delusion, that's not from the Father. He's not the author of confusion. So we make our declaration known. Do we have to do it by their methods? Like I said, I did a good faith notice. I submitted it to all the authorities up here. I tried first to go after the Vital Statistics office down in Ohio, where I'm from, and have some communication with them as far as my position with the surname specifically, but the birth certificate. And they know what they're doing.
Don't you think that at the end of the day, that the most important thing is not necessarily how you do it, but them in recognition of you doing it? See,
At the end of the day, the most important thing, Jesse, is whether I'm doing my Father's will. Period.
Jack, let me finish. Okay, it's methods are many and principles are few. It's not about the method that you take to get there. It's about the principle that's expressed and whether or not the principle is expressed in a way that they're going to recognize it so that you get to pass through. Okay, if you did all those things and they haven't recognized any of those things, then what is the point of it? Nothing.
Okay, but then it goes back to what what's her name was saying here. I forget her name. Susan, maybe was her name. She was talking about, what about people that don't have access to this? They don't have availability to this. What is the gospel, Jesse? What do you go and preach? How do you preach the gospel if you're preaching the gospel? You got to go and take here, get on my Telegram group and start reading all these videos and all these books and do your Come on, man. It's simple. That's what we're told. It's in the red letters. Nobody wants to look at the red letters. I preach the kingdom to people, and they're like, well, how are we going to eat? Look at what Jesus said.
I think it's silly to think that you don't have access to God just because somebody hasn't given you a book. Okay, God is in your heart.
I didn't say anything like that. I'm talking about how do you preach the gospel to somebody? Are you going to refer them to a whole bunch of codes and statutes and laws and constitutions and charters from man? And that's how they're going to understand their relationship with the Father? Or are you free? Are you made free through Christ when he wants you to be free?
I mean, you have to ask that fundamental question. Where do your rights come from? Okay,
The
what
Father.
are rights? Okay, what are rights? Most people think that they have an understanding of what rights are, but a right is a 90-degree angle on a flat piece of paper. And it goes back to the Bible where it says that the four archangels guard the four corners of the earth. Well, the biblical earth is flat because it's making reference to a contract. If you take the word earth, it's a palindrome. Okay, you reverse the letters and it means heart. So it's saying your heart's desire. What is it that your heart desires? Where do you stand at in regards to that? Because everything is this metaphorical construct of this contract that has four archangels, 90-degree angles, and at the bottom right you sign your name, okay, at the bottom right hand of the angle, which is where your rights are. So did you bring your rights with you? Where do you derive your rights from? Do they come from a higher power or are they contractual obligations? There's a difference between different types of rights. Not everything is all
Sure. And when you enter that covenant and when you enter that trust with Messiah, what he did was take all those ordinances, that's what it says, and he blotted them out. And I've got all these men saying, oh no, you've got to do this and you've got to do this and you've got no, Messiah finished it. He overruled it all.
I don't recall the Bible saying anything about rights.
It does. Well, it does, but it doesn't. Right? It's one of those things that you have to have.
I heard about dominion, but I never heard nothing about rights.
I agree.
the whole concept of rights comes from the Bible because it's based upon your free will. Free will is a contract or an agreement, if you want to call it that, or a trust indenture, some type of agreement between you and something else.
Well, we can just call it reaping and sowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the same thing. It's just a principle, right? It's the principle that's being expressed.
So, Jesse, when I submitted that good faith notice to the district attorney a year ago, he wrote back and he said, you know, the state understands that you don't recognize it as authority over you, and yet we continue to persist. So they recognized and they understood full well and clear what I was telling them, and we're going to persist either way.
Well, then, you know, I would, if I was you, I would do, you know, I would get my children's birth certificates and have them authenticated, and I would make my claim, and then I would get out of the system. I mean, I would do everything I had to do to get up out of the system, whether you believe in it or think that it's required. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is, you know.
Well, but thinking you can do what you think versus doing what you're able to do according to being under the Father's authority and control and will. And I mean, he controls my life, man. You know, if I don't have anything and I don't pursue money the way everybody else does, he provides everything. So I'm constantly having to wait and listen for him. And that's how my life goes. And no, that's not good enough for most people. They want more control than that. I had lots of control in the past. That's how I was able to buy a piece of property. I had tax-free property. Okay, we didn't even have property taxes out there where I lived. Had it paid off. 6 children, house, right on the Copper River. Beautiful, man. That's not what I'm after. That's what everybody else is after. That's not security. The only security we have in what's coming is the Father. And it's complete faith and trust in him. And that's what I'm trying to testify to. And everybody keeps just calling it my own opinion. No, it's the gospel, man.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just said that that's not it's not pragmatic. Now, whether that should be applicable or not, that's upon each man and their own, you know, what they're going through. I agree with what you're saying.
Sure.
I mean, I don't have a real argument aside from it's not 100% pragmatic. So I'm trying to find a balance between the two.
Well, I agree with what you're saying about if there is a way that I can simply, because, you know, in my mind, in my heart, the way that I'm convicted is it has to remain simple. The gospel's simple. The truth is simple. I'm not jumping through man's hoops. Okay, so if there is a simple process that I can do, you know, I'm not seeing the trust thing as any kind of resolution to, because there again, it's just silliness to go and create a fictional trust, you know, thinking you have some kind of authority or something that it's only coming through the systems of law that aren't God's law. So, you know, what more can you do than what I've done? What, you know? And are they going to recognize it and acknowledge it? Are they going to back out of where they've done without me being able to leverage anything against them? And that's not what I'm called and commanded to do. Nowhere did Jesus tell me, did Messiah tell me that I need to be able to make these suckers pay.
So you have to realize that everything that they're doing is based upon a classical law. They take all
No, it's
the rules.
well, you say that, but to me, I hear you say Catholic law when you say ecclesiastical law, because it's not scriptural law.
Look,
It is. It's
Jack,
Catholic law.
it doesn't matter. What I'm saying here is that the whole point is, are they recognizing you as the age of majority where it talks about it in the Bible? We know that there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. We know that we're under grace, but for whatever reason, we're choosing to still be under the law of the sea merchant, which
They
goes
don't
back
want to recognize me for who I am. Okay, and ultimately, what we've got is common law. Yeah, everybody wants to talk about how great common law is. Common law is not God's law, especially English common law, but that's what we have right now is common law. We've got mob rule. Okay, so if your neighbors don't like what you're doing, they're going to use the system against you. Our biggest enemies are our neighbors, and we're commanded to love our neighbors as ourselves.
I'm not disagreeing. You're not allowing me to finish my train of thought. Okay. We know that there is the Old Testament and the New Testament, and that the Old Testament really falls under more so of the laws of what's going on today. We know that we're under grace and that all debts have been forgiven, but yet we still choose to pay for those debts. Okay, I completely get it. There's two different
No, we
trusts.
still choose to put ourselves in subjection to the kingdoms of men, and we're called not to. We're called to come out from that and be peculiar citizens of another nation.
What I'm saying is that in order for you to do that, you have to come out of that system. That requires for you to put your feet back on the land. Okay, for you to make that declaration and for you to have that stance, you cannot be out at sea anymore. You have to come off the sea and walk on the land. And you're not walking on the land, metaphorically speaking. Okay? That's the whole point. That's what that declaration is. It takes you from one jurisdiction into another jurisdiction, and then you can decide on where you want to be and what you're going to do, because now you have the authority to do it where you didn't. When you're in their world, you don't have any authority because you're completely in Satan's dominion, and he makes the rules. So you're trying to live in the world, okay, and do what you need to do, but be outside of the world, but you haven't made no declaration that you've come back from being lost at sea, metaphorically speaking, okay, to say that you have an inherent right to do so. You're just being looked at like your property, okay, and everything you're saying is true and correct, but until you have put yourself in a position to make that claim and it cannot be overridden or unrecognized, then that other presumption is going to continue to stand. Right?
Well, but you're not able to show any method other than just taking the Father's word for it that does that. Nobody is. Nobody is.
All I know is that I have a lifetime of shit that says that I'm participating in this and that I have to be able to remove myself from out of that. And that means I have to go back and renege on everything that I've done and every time that I've signed. And I have to remove myself from that system so that there's no presumption that I'm participating in.
Sure, but it's real simple. All you have to do is state that fact. State that fact. Because, the maxim of law is real simple, and it says that consent removes mistake, and mistake, once you realize the mistake, it removes consent. We're done.
Equity removes those things. Okay, you have
Equity.
to go in, you have to use equity in order to do that, because equity rights all wrongs from to the very beginning.
Well, then remember, equity in man's system is not the same as equity in God's law. So where is the word equity in the scriptures?
I don't know, but I know that there are 4 jurisdictions in the Constitution. There is the legislative,
I don't care about the Constitution. All I care about is the scriptures.
So either you're going to learn how to use equity.
The Constitution has nothing to do with me. I wasn't even alive when they wrote it. Where I've consented to it, I just need to acknowledge that I'm not a part to that.
Well, then
I've already declared my citizenship, and I've declared my standing.
In helicopters, and they try to take your children from you, you're going to be trying to figure out what's going on, because you think in your mind you've done everything that you're supposed to do in order to deter that. But obviously,
well,
not,
Jesse, what did Messiah say about the tribulations and the persecutions you would suffer in this world?
You know what, Jack? I've done these things, and they don't fuck with me, man. They leave me alone. So I don't know what you're talking about, but I know what the fuck I'm talking about because they don't mess with me. They go out of the way to leave me alone. They seem to be flying over your house with helicopters trying to come and get you. But
No, that's not the whole story, but yeah.
I mean, why? Because A, I have faith that God is protecting me, and B, I put the full protection of the armor of God on before I go out in the world every single time.
All right, but what we were talking about is what's coming upon this society as a whole. It doesn't have anything to do with me or you specifically, even just that, we know what's coming.
Well, I have no control over what anybody else does or what they participate in. Only what I
do you
do.
believe?
Being an
Do you
armor,
believe that what you've done? Do you believe that what you've done is going to protect you through what's coming?
Nothing is going to protect when a freaking nuclear bomb hits. I mean, when a nuclear bomb hits, we're all fucked. I mean, what do you want to do? But you know what? Until then, I'm going to be making sure that I have safeguards in place to protect my ass until that time happens. And then when those safeguards no longer serve their purpose, then it's in God's hands. Okay, but I've done my due diligence, and I've done my diligence to make sure that I put the full armor of God on when I go out into the world. I'm not just going to go out there under a presumption because that's how they operate. I make sure.
Yeah, I'm not questioning your intentions or your motives, Jesse. I think you're pretty genuine, and I think you're seeking the truth. I'm just, we talk about those protections. You said those genuine protections you've put in place. That's what we're talking about. I'm saying I don't see where they're genuine protections, and you're saying they are.
No, I'm saying that they're serving their purpose and they have protected me. Okay, now whether you want to say at the end of the day that serves the ultimate protection, obviously not, because at the end of the day it's all in God's hands. But I'm going to do what I can do to protect my ass. Right?
Well, I'm curious to hear how they've protected you. I mean, that's obviously in part why I'm listening.
I travel around in my private vehicle every day. I don't get.
Well, I did that too. I did that too.
I got pulled over more when I had regular than I do when I have private plates. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll have the ability to write these people and get them to drop charges because I know what to say to them. I mean, so, having the knowledge to do certain things is very, very important when you're dealing with the world and the world is trying to come down on your shoulders. Not having any protection there is just, to me, is just a fool's folly. You're just asking and leaving the door.
Here's the thing, though. What you just pointed to is no protection. Is what I'm saying is my Father's protection, His authority, His kingdom, His earth, and you're just referring it, or you're referring to it as nothing compared to your protections you've put in place.
No, that's not what I said, because every time I get in the car, I took the means to put extra protections in place, and then I re-solidify those protections by praying to God. Every time I get into my vehicle, every single time I have something that I do, and I pray and I clear my energy and everything else that's equated to that and leave it in God's hands. And guess what?
I agree.
Don't
Awesome.
ever
Yeah.
mess with. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not me just thinking that just because I did something that's going to be enough. No. I have to have faith that those things that I've set in place and that God has instructed me to do, okay, are going to pan out the way that they're supposed to. Every single time they do. Okay, because I put in the works and I have the faith to back up the works.
I hear you. There's not one method that anybody's doing right now I've been able to fit into the scriptures. So, but I'm looking. I mean, I'm listening. I mean, I should say I'm not looking for anything other than what what's already declared in the law. But it's really everything should line up with the scriptures. And most people don't have a lot of experience or time in the scriptures, and I do. That's what the Father. That's what He grew me up in was His Word, and then getting into all this legal shit. I've got a lot stronger foundation than most people do that have just come into it.
I mean, there's no way in the world that I could do what I do if I did not have faith in God, that at the end of the day I wasn't serving His purpose, okay, and the majority of the things that are out of my control that I wasn't rendering under Him to take care of. Right? Because I would be scared and I wouldn't get in my vehicle and go down the road, knowing all the things that I've been through every single time I've been pulled over and taken to jail for some nonsense. So, a lot of what I do is faith-based. And then I put in the work to back that faith up to show that, hey, my faith is strong but it also requires for me to put in work, to solidify that what I say is what I mean, and what I mean is what I say.
What are your thoughts on where we're commanded to touch not the unclean thing?
Then you might as well just keep washing your hands all day long, bro, because all day long you touch unclean things.
Huh.
You keep washing your hands, you're not going to have any healthy germs in order to serve their purpose. You have to find a balance between things. You cannot go to one extreme and then expect to get all the results that you want, because it's not pragmatic and it's not realistic in the real world. You live on a physical plane affected by physical
I'm
things.
just talking about that scripture, man. Come out from among her, touch not the unclean thing. What are we not to touch? What are we not to touch?
Well, then you create a trust so that you don't have to touch it. That's the whole point of the trust. The trust does it for you so that you're not
If you create it, it's yours. It's not the Father's.
Well, then create it in His name.
There's already a trust. The trust is what Messiah did. It's the covenant.
Okay,
That's
but
a trust.
it doesn't say that you can't create another trust. It doesn't say in there that you can't create your own contract. Everything's
I suppose it all depends on what law that it comes from. Whose law are we talking about?
On God's law. Base what you're doing on God's law, on God's premises, because that's what they're
Well,
doing.
back to what Susan was asking you earlier, okay? How many generations of people have gone by that the common man didn't know how to read or write? Where was salvation for them? And then we're back to what I was asking you. How do you preach the kingdom? You out and preach the kingdom to your fellow man. How do you do that? What are you preaching? What are you telling them? They need to get a trust? They need to learn trust law?
Yeah, they absolutely do need to learn trust law, because it goes back to the Bible. The whole premise of all of this is based on trust law, because it comes from God's law.
So you need a lot.
Trust law.
So you need a lot more than Messiah's words.
You need to understand what you're reading so that you can apply it in its correct application, or you're just.
You need a lot more. You need a lot more than what God even testifies through creation. I mean, the squirrels don't have to pay rent. They don't have to go to the store. They don't have to do all kinds of things. I mean, and you can say I'm stupid saying that, but Messiah talked about the sparrows.
Stupid about that. That's what you're saying.
He talked about animals.
You're correct in what you're saying. I'm not really arguing with you about anything. I agree with 99% of what you're saying. It's just not. I'm trying to figure out a more pragmatic way to go about it so that I don't have to be homeless and destitute with freaking helicopters flying over my house, dude.
Well, but if you still have to operate a trust.
Yeah, no matter what you're doing, you're operating in trust. You came into this world under trust. So yes, everything.
No, you have to operate a trust is what I'm saying. I mean, if you create a trust, you have to, it's your baby. You got to deal with it. It's something that's going to, require from you. Correct?
You create the trust, and then you assign trustees to run it for you so that you don't have to touch anything.
So what about when we don't have computers, we don't have paper, we don't have pens, we don't have all the things that are required for you to manage that trust? Simple things that are owned by the corporations.
Okay, well, how did people 200 years ago manage a trust? They wrote it
I
down
don't
on
think
a piece of paper.
I don't think 200 years ago they were. 200 years ago, yeah. Well, they had pens and papers, yeah.
Thousands of years they've been operating in trust. Since the beginning of time, everything has been operating in trust, whether it's written, implied, expressed, or it's implied. All right. Intelligent people write it down on a piece of paper so that they can be passed on to their heirs, so that and teach them how to run the trust and what it consists of. I mean, people back in the old day who had Bibles and the Constitution on it, they understood trust law. Whether they were actually had their own trust was irrelevant. They still understood trust law, because trust law comes from the Bible.
Good job, Jesse.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do what you think is best, and you got to be in accordance with your Creator. And I will never argue with you.
We both thought about these things, so
your path to
he's a little bit like in the bag with the scriptures. I mean, I think it's if I don't see it in the scriptures, it doesn't exist. I don't know. I'm not saying that there's not relevancy there, but Jesse's just
Your
implying
mic's
that
on.
because you have
Turn it up a
like
little
the
bit, brother.
scripture doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing these remedies for yourself as an extra
So the
safeguard.
other guy, wait, I don't know. So Jesse's arguing what?
Jesse's not arguing anything. That guy's arguing that like people have to now start to run trust. But Jesse's saying, yeah, you need certain things in safeguards, not just like I believe in God, it's gonna just work out for me. You know, you can do that, but it's not. It's that.
Oh,
That's
because the guy is saying you just focus on faith.
yeah, exactly.
Well, see,
Well,
you say, Jesse, I can do that as if it's like just my opinion or my, but really, I mean, the only thing that should concern us if we're operating in trust, and that trust is the new covenant, then the only thing you should concern us is the simple commandments and instructions in that trust. So, like it goes back to what I asked you is if we're told to come out from it and not touch it, what? Well, we're talking about the world and the ways of the world, mammon.
that's what Jesse was saying. Jesse's like, well, just because I trust that God's gonna get me there whenever I get in my car, doesn't mean that I shouldn't have these things in place. Because if I get stopped or something happens, you know, there's nothing that's gonna happen there except for.
Thing is that it's wise to take precautions. Okay, just like if you're going to leave your house and it's freezing outside, you would put some warm clothes on, right? Would you say, God, I know it's freezing outside. Can you please not let me freeze to death when I go outside of the house? Well, God's going to say, well, duh, it's cold out there. If you go out there without no clothes on, you're liable to freeze. Or you think that God's going to keep you warm. You know, I mean, at some point you have to realize that you're subject to the physical elements in the world around you, and you have to take some type of precautionary things yourself to make sure that nature itself does not kill your ass. Because God is
Yeah, I
not
live
going
in
to.
Alaska, Jesse. I get it, man. But where are we being called to own a house like that?
It's a metaphorical house. It doesn't have to be a literal house, bro. It doesn't always have to be literal in my something.
The problem is to argue with an idiot. Leave it alone.
Mark, mute your mic, bro, if you're not going to talk, because we can hear y'all in the background. We're going to mute Mark until he decides to quit that. Sorry, Mark, I had to mute you. I'll unmute you when you decide to mute yourself or talk.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I'm not trying to argue with you, and I don't feel like you're trying to argue with me. It just goes back to, you know, really, how do we communicate with them? They don't hear us. You're saying they do and they can. So what method are they able to hear the living man who's entered into, a trust under the new covenant with Messiah as his surety in all matters whatsoever? He's my king. There's nothing I can do outside his authority. I don't care what the system says. I don't care what their little rule book says. I can't submit to it.
Well, you're not supposed to submit to it. You're supposed to have your ducks in a row before you get there so that you don't submit to it. You're not backed into a corner and given no other choice. If you just walk in there in a public venue that's secular in nature, okay, and you trying to make a proclamation with no declaration, guess what's going to happen? They're probably going to throw you in jail or out on your head, right? Because you didn't bring any rights with you. You didn't establish those things beforehand, right? Maximum law says you only have the rights that you brought with you. So if you didn't bring any with you, okay, and all you brought is a bunch of words that aren't reflecting the record, because the record is what they determine the facts are from. So if the record is not reflecting what you're saying, then it's all hearsay.
Well, the record is supposed to be the word of Yah.
Well, have you declared that anywhere?
Well, of course, but I'm talking about their record is supposed to go back to that, obviously, with what they've said.
Well, yeah, but you have to have a medium of or a way for them to lead back to the series of events that lead to that. And everything before that is contrary to that. So why don't you create a record that leads to that rebuts that presumption? And at the end of the line, the only thing left for them to conclude is that this is what it is.
Exactly. So where I'm at with it, and I kind of half-heartedly I submitted it was a demand for accommodation of faith, and I submitted that maybe about 5 months ago, and right afterwards they returned custody because they had emergency custody taken over the 5 children that we have with us. They have our one daughter. So anyway, they returned, legal custody right after I submitted that demand for accommodation of faith. But I only sent it to the DA and maybe one other. So I think I'm going to do a better demand for accommodation of faith. And
Listen, Jack, listen. You keep sending these notices to the dead entities and expect them to acknowledge you in a dead entity capacity of the status.
Oh no! I assure you, I send it to the private men and women. They're
You're missing my point here. Okay, you need to establish it on the land record, and then you get a certified copy of that and authenticate it. Then you send it to them. Okay, now you're coming from a different jurisdiction with a different authority. You're not coming in under their authority and their de facto government. You're coming under the Republic, and you're using the Republic to which it stands, backed by God and God's laws. Okay, you have to make the declaration from the land, not from the sea. Okay, you're making it from the sea, and they don't recognize anything on the sea other than their administrative process. There's a series of events and steps that you must take in order to get these entities to recognize who you are in the capacity of which you're trying to do it. And you're doing it from their venue or from their jurisdiction. Man, move that shit over to another jurisdiction and then make your declaration and let them know who you are.
Well, I've challenged their venue. I've challenged their jurisdiction. That's where it stands.
Yeah, but you didn't do it from the land. You did it from the sea. Okay, think about it. It's the same concept of me coming to your house and trying to tell you how to run business. Okay, you're going to boot me out on my head. You're going to ignore me, or you're going to throw me in jail or call somebody to come and get me or shoot me. Okay, you're in somebody else's house trying to make a declaration. Do it from your own house, man. Do it from your own status and standing. Quit doing it from theirs. Declare who you are, and then make your declaration and go in there with the authority of God and back it up.
Yeah, I've done that. That's what I was saying. But you're saying there's a process that would be doing that more than I've done.
Did you file anything on the land record? Is there anything that establishes that you are coming and established from the land record and that you're sending something from that post? No. Okay, everything that you sent has been from a post that is out at sea. So how do you
I've not sent anything in the mail, only email. Okay. I don't send anything in the mail. I don't sign anything. I only send things via email.
You went up to their venue and you filed it on their record.
Their venue? Email's their venue? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's in their preview. It's in their jurisdiction because you're going to straight communicate from them from another commercial outpost, from another commercial vehicle. You have to do it from a non-commercial vehicle, which would be from the land. There's a difference between being incorporated and unincorporated, or just being incorporated. Incorporated is in the jurisdiction of the maritime admiralty setting. Okay, unincorporated is from the land jurisdiction, which is a different, completely set of rules that define the boundaries and the terms and the conditions therein. They're not the same thing. Everything goes back